Yes, people, welcome to episode 1, Albert Talks podcast. I've got 2 special guests with me. Just a quick little bio. I'm quite new to the YouTube world. Last couple of months, it's been exciting. I've had some amazing feedback and compliments from people just to keep going at it. So, with further ado, we've got a lot to talk about today. Got 2 special guests, Guna Richby and RJ Arsenal Blog. Guys, thank you for your time, because I know you guys are busy doing your own thing, but I appreciate you joining today. So, guys, tell people where they can find you and check out your content in your blogs. Starting Rohan first.
So it's my first time on YouTube, my YouTube debut, and I'm on Instagram and Twitter. My handle's below, RJ Arsenal Blog, and I started this account late June just to share blogs and analysis I do for a site called Town, and the content I provide is Arsenal player analysis, tactical reviews, just everything Arsenal related. And I share everything on Twitter. On top of that, on Twitter, I do a lot of threads that are similar to what I write, and it's just based on analysis. And also just my thoughts and opinions on Arsenal and football in general. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, then follow.
Brilliant. Cheers, mate. Rich, you may introduce yourself, mate.
Yeah, just want to say I've read quite a lot of Rohan stuff. It's really good, so definitely get involved and check them out, because it is great stuff, actually. So I'm going to Rich B on Twitter. I've got a YouTube channel which I've only just started last few weeks, called Over and Over and Over Again. It focuses on a lot of stuff, really. I'm trying to make it a bit more positive. I do think there's too much negativity around Arsenal, too much, especially on YouTube and stuff like that. I think people tend to jump on bandwagons and criticise everybody, and I want to stay away from that. I'm trying to be positive with things, really. There's some stuff about the club's history on there. I'm doing player profiles and all stuff like that. And, once the season starts, I'll be doing a lot more as well. A few sort of live shows I'm doing as well. So it's Over and Over and Over Again on YouTube. There's a Facebook page as well. I've done some blogs as well, match reports and stuff on there. So
brilliant.
That's all there.
Yeah, guys, I've put Richard and Rohan's link in my description. So, guys, please do check these guys out. These guys do some brilliant stuff, man. I can firsthand say that because I've seen it. So, and the guy's been supportive towards me as well. So, thank you very much. We've got one more person probably joining a bit later. Alex may be running a bit late, but hopefully he'll join in. So, guys, I'm going to start this a bit differently with my podcast. I've obviously brief you guys on what I want to talk about agenda-wise. But I just want to know your guys' Arsenal journey, really. There's a lot of football clubs we can go and support and growing up and that, but why Arsenal is sort of a 3-part question in terms of how long you've been supporting the club and what's your earliest memory. Starting with Rich first.
Well, basically what happened was I'm not from a football family, really. I mean, my family wasn't sort of football supporters of any particular club. And what happened was we used to watch the FA Cup final together every year at home as a family when I was young. It was the 1978 FA Cup final. Obviously, Arsenal played Ipswich. Now, it was while we were watching the build-up to that game that my mum happened to mention to me that when her family moved over to England from Burma just after the Second World War, they actually lived in Green Lanes, which is just around the corner from the Highbury Stadium. So she sort of said, we should want Arsenal to win this game, because it was her sort of local club when she moved to England, you see. Yeah. So it sort of started from there. And then during that summer holiday, I was sort of like 9-10 years old at the time. And during that sort of 6 weeks holiday from school in the summer, I basically persuaded my mum to say, look, I want to go and see where you used to live. So we went on the tube, got off at Finsbury Park, I think it was. We walked down Green Lanes where she used to live. Obviously where her old house had been knocked down and turned into flats and stuff. But we had looked down there, and obviously on the way back, we came back up Avenel Road, saw the East Stand at Highbury, and I was like, wow. And that was it then. That was just, that was it. Arsenal was my club then from that moment, really. And I mean, in terms of earliest memories, obviously that was one, but probably my first ever match was against Manchester City, 1981. And the first time getting off Arsenal station, the tube station, coming up that windy tunnel, when you come up from the underground and you've got all the wind blowing, and just coming up there and then obviously crossing over the road, going into the North Bank as I did on that particular day, walking up the steps and then just getting to the top and just seeing the pitch. And that was just unbelievable. That has never ever left me. And I think that's probably why just that memory of that really just walking up them steps, seeing inside the stadium for the first time, seeing the pitch and everything like that. And bearing in mind, back then in 1981, for people that wasn't really around then, Arsenal wasn't particularly good. You know, the team that had done well in the late 70s, reaching cup finals, had been sort of broken up. We'd lost Liam Brady and Frank Staple and two of the best players. And the team wasn't very good to watch at all. It was terrible in actual fact. And if I'd been maybe a bit older now and a bit more experienced, then I'd have probably not wanted to go back because the game was not very good. We won 1-0. To me, it was like the best game ever. You know, we won 1-0 and it was brilliant. But it started from there for me, really. So it's really from my mum, just because that's where she used to live. So that's where it came from. And, you know, I just took it on, really, from there. That was it.
Brilliant, brilliant. Rohan, what's your story, mate? Let's hear it.
Well, mine's not, I don't think, as exciting as Rich's. But similar to Rich, that a lot of football fans, they're brought up to follow a club from their previous generation, whether it's grandfathers, mums, dads, uncles, or whatever it is. And, you know, that knowledge is passed on to them and they use that, and that's how they start following their club. But with me, again, like Rich, I wasn't from a football background. I was more from a cricket background. That was my first sport that I grew up with. But in terms of when I started watching football, it was in 2006, towards January time, and it was actually the first time we got Sky. And so I started watching a lot of football, and Arsenal were the team at that time, a lot on TV. There was Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United, and Chelsea, the so-called Big Four. And I really liked the Arsenal home jersey that year, the 2005-06 top, and that's still my favourite top right now. And when I saw that, I wanted my mum and dad to get me that straight away. And the minute they gave me that top, that's when I started supporting them, and I've been following them since then. Obviously, that year, it was heartbreaking in the end because of the Champions League. But yeah, in terms of my earliest memory, I think in that season, I remember we beat Fulham 4-0 at Craven Cottage, if you can remember that game. And Adebayor, Diaby scored in that game. But, it was quite vague. I think, obviously, the Champions League was big memories for me. The semi-final against Villarreal when Cola Torre scored at Highbury. And then the return leg, Jens Lehmann had a brilliant game. Clichy gives the foul away towards the dying embers of the game, and he saves the penalty, and that enabled us to get into the final. But we won't talk about the final. That was when I started supporting them.
I want to add further to that. I want to get you two guys. What's your? There's plenty of moments to choose from as an Arsenal fan in terms of great moments and tradition and silverware. But Rohan, I'll start with you again. What's your best or favorite two moments as an Arsenal fan for you?
For me, I would say, you could say the Invincibles, but I didn't watch that live. So, I've watched the games back, but it's not the same because it's already happened. But for me, it's a little bit more recently, and it was the 2014 FA Cup final against Hull. That was, back then in school, you used to get banned so much as an Arsenal fan, 10 years, no trophy, and all this talk. And that final was a big moment for me because, it was a chance for us to, put that to the back of our minds and start again. And, it didn't go very well. 2-0 down or towards the start of the game, we played poorly. The two goals were really poor in our sense. And, it was the case of the Hull were imposing their game and we didn't really have an answer at that stage. And we were actually struggling a lot in the game. But then in a big final, you need a big player to step up. And Santi Cazorla did that for us when he had that free kick. Because I don't think we would have won that game had he not scored that free kick because we didn't look like it. It just didn't feel right in that game. And when he scored that free kick, it was the catalyst, and then we went on to obviously equalise with Koscielny, and we went to extra time, and Ramsey scored the winner. So that was probably my favourite memory because not just the trophy, but the fact that 10 years it was a really good moment for Arsene Wenger to get that out in the back of his mind, and for me in general to go to school the next day or the day after because I think it was on a Saturday, and give it to them back.
Right, cool. Richard, what's yours, mate? I'm sure you got plenty of memories, mate. What's your favourite two, though?
Obviously, Michael Thomas's goal at Anfield, 89. It'd been, growing up, Liverpool were winning everything. Every year they won the league. And I never thought that I would ever experience watching my club win the league title. I just never thought I'd ever see it happen because we never looked like we had a chance ever. And then suddenly that year, of course, we led the league for ages, looked like we'd blown it at the end. And then to win it in that way, almost like a cup final win rather than a league title win. And that goal going in was just it's a surreal moment, really. It's something you just don't imagine it's ever going to happen. And when it happens like that, it's something you never forget. I don't know whether was you old enough to remember that yourself?
Cool. You know what? But coming to me, yeah, my sort of first Arsenal memory was 88-89. And it was, I remember, it's a shame for me because I look at it and think, I remember it, but I was so young, probably not to enjoy it as much if I was a bit older.
Yeah.
I remember losing it. I was only at the time, oh God, 8 years old. So, but I just remember that game, and I always say to people that second goal, if you actually look at it from a team perspective, it was a brilliant goal.
Yeah,
the throw from Lukic, a great ball from Dixon into Smithy, who was brilliant at holding the ball up. Great ball to Michael Thomas. Yes, he was a little bit fortunate of a touch here and there, but the actual goal itself was a brilliant goal. So that was my sort of first memory of Arsenal. In terms of like going to games, I was quite a late developer because people that I knew, I got into playing football quite early, but in terms of going to actual games, a lot of the people I knew were all either Millwall fans. You might have the odd Arsenal fan, which was myself, or you had one Tottenham fan, but mainly I played football around sort of the South East London area. So a lot of Millwall fans and maybe even Charlton. So my actual journey going to games didn't start till like the Emirates era. So when I took it upon myself to sort of want the urge to go and watch Arsenal play, I thought, you know what, much as it's all right seeing them on television, it's not the same as being at games. So in terms of going to the games, that was sort of me when I first started. So, but in terms of favorite memories, yeah, we talk about the Invincibles, but for me personally, growing up, doing a double in 97, 98 was incredible. Because
that Tony Adams goal against Everton, that's probably, I would say it's difficult for me to pick two moments. Probably that Michael Thomas goal, the Tony Adams goal against Everton when we won the Premier League. And I agree with Rohan, the 2014 FA Cup final, because I was there with my son. First time he had seen us win a trophy. So to experience that with him was brilliant. So that'd be the three things that really stick out in my mind of all the years I've been going to games, really. But yeah, 89, 98, sorry, that was a great season, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, because I remember come like December 97, I think we was languishing in about sixth position, and even going into the, February of 98, we was 12 points behind Manchester United, and then we went on an unbelievable 10-game winning streak. Ian Wright broke Cliff Basson's record. We saw the emergence of Nicolas Anelka. And I just thought, particularly in that 10-game run, we played some unbelievable champagne football. I thought it was superb. And
that was like the arrival of Wenger, wasn't it? Wenger ball. Yes. That was when it started. And the transition really from the end of the George Graham era, which was quite dull to watch, if we're honest, the last 2 or 3 years of George Graham. We won a few cups, but it wasn't great to watch, was it? And suddenly there was this magical football suddenly was happening. And it's like, is this the same team? Is this the same club that we had 2 or 3 years ago? It was so different, wasn't it? Yeah. And that title was probably my favourite title season, 97, 98.
Yeah, for me it was.
How fresh it was. Wenger's new ideas, no one had ever seen it before. The way he wanted to play football, some of the players we had, Overmars and Petit, and what a great team that was. And that is still probably now. We've had the Invincibles, the double of 2002, which was a great team. But for me, that was probably my favourite title season. That and probably 1991 when we only lost 1 game. We almost became invincible then. That was a great season. But probably 98 is probably the best one, just because it was the first Premier League title as well. And I think that was a big, massive moment for the club, actually, because we needed to win the Premier League. Man United kept winning it. We was there or thereabouts. We just couldn't quite do it. But that season, it all just came together, didn't it? That run, you said, that 10 games. The win at Old Trafford when Overmars scored, that was probably my favourite ever away day. That was brilliant.
Yeah, and I think my other before we go into the main topics, probably my other favourite memory, and probably because if you look at our European record as a club, for a club of our size, to only ever have 2 European trophies is a travesty, to be honest with you. So 94 was brilliant. We played a top Parma side in Serie A, because the Serie A in them times in the early 90s to mid 90s was a really, really hot league. You had you had a lot of the top German players, Lothar Matthäus, Andras Bremer.
It was live on the telly, wasn't it? We had it live on the telly, didn't we? They showed the game every week. So that's how good the league was, because there was so much interest in it. So they were a top team, Parma.
Yeah, and Parma came 5th that season, and they had top players like they had Thomas Brolin, Faustino Asprilla, they had Gianfranco Zola, they had Roberto Sensini at the back, they had a top goalkeeper and Luca Bucci in goal. We had Ian Wright missing for the final because he got 2 bookings in the semi-final against PSG. Martin Keown was missing, I think, through injury as well. Yeah. And I think for me, when people talk about 1-0 to the Arsenal, for whatever generation you are as a fan, I think that game for me summed up Arsenal. We was
At that time,
resolute. Yeah, I think for me that game in isolation, I think that sums us up for being 1-0 to the Arsenal. But no, it's great. It's great to hear you guys is like your football journey as an Arsenal fan. But let's dip right into it, man. First thing we're going to talk about is the fixture list. I'm not going to go through every sort of fixture, but I mean, when I saw the fixture list come out, the first thing I always look for, guys, I don't know what your opinions are, but I look for when we're playing Tottenham home and away, and I always look at who we're playing on Boxing Day. So we've got Chelsea on Boxing Day, and we've got Tottenham away. I think it is on December 5th, and then we've got them at home in March. But I wanted to concentrate on the first 2 months of the season. I've got the fixtures in front of me. So September 12th, we've got Fulham away. September 19th, we've got West Ham at home, and we've got Liverpool away on the 26th. I want to get you guys' thoughts in terms of how many points do you think we'll get out of a possible 9, and what's your early thoughts generally about the first 3 fixtures of the season, starting with Rohan?
Yeah, I think if we go back to the fixtures in general, I'm actually really happy with them because when I look at when the fixtures come out, I look at 3 periods within the season. The first 3-4 games, because it's vital to start, have a good start to the season, not play catch up from the get go. The Christmas period around about 15th of December all the way to around about the 5th of January. Those games that are put together, and the running. And if you look at the games, particularly in the running, for example, between April and May, we do obviously have to play Liverpool and Chelsea. But if you look at those games, there's a lot of winnable games where we can achieve the result that will allow us to have a good finish to the season. And even in the Christmas period, we've got to play Chelsea obviously on Boxing Day. Or was it? Boxing Day.
Yeah, that's correct, mate.
Yeah, last season we had to play Chelsea and United in the space of 3 or 4 days. And this season Chelsea is in that cluster of games the only real notable one that's going to be a lot tougher. There's obviously other tough games, and there is the saying that there's no easy game in the Premier League. But if we look at all those other fixtures in and around that period, we should be achieving good results and definitely looking to take maximum points as the best as we can in that period as well. And yeah, like I said, going back to the first 3 games, I know a lot of people are looking at the Liverpool game away from home, but for me, the first 2 games are much more important. And the reason why I say that is because we're in a position where we need to get back into the top 4. And to get into the top 4, you need to have good consistency against the teams you're expected to beat. It's not the teams, towards the top end of the table, Man City and Liverpool. Those are the elite sides of the division. The games from, I'd say, 5th downwards are the teams we have to look at, and we have to achieve good results both home and away. And that's been the Achilles heel for us over the last 3-4 years as to why we haven't gotten the Champions League. You look at Arsene Wenger's latter stages of his Arsenal career. Away from home, our record was really poor, regardless of who it was against. You were struggling to see us get, take the 3 points, and that just wasn't good enough. You look at Unai Emery as well. We improved slightly from Wenger's previous year, but again, it wasn't enough. And again, last year, both home and away, we lacked consistency throughout. And I think that, like I said, the first 2 games are games that we are expected to beat. They're games that we have to impose our game. And that means, there's a very likelihood that these teams are going to surrender possession, deploy a low block, and it's down to us to impose our game. And I think that's where the questions will come, because we have to achieve the results against these teams. I mean, if you look at last season, we, in terms of both home and away winning, we only beat Newcastle and I think it was West Ham. That's not good enough, and that's an area that we have to improve on. So, like I said, the Liverpool game, it is important, but the first 2 games are much more important because the game against Liverpool isn't going to determine our top 4 destiny. It's going to tell us where we stand with the elite teams within the division. So yeah, if we look at Fulham away from home first game, it's it's a newly promoted team. It's away from home. It's a game you'd expect us to win. I think that the fact that there's no fans in the stadium is going to help us because when you're playing newly promoted teams toward the start of the season, it can be tricky games because they're going to be up for it. Back in the Premier League, the fans will create a hostile atmosphere, and it would have certainly made it a lot more difficult than what it might be now. And then the game against West Ham after that, we tend to have a good record against West Ham at home. I think the last time they beat us was Petr Cech's nightmare debut, the 2-0.
Yeah.
And that was the last time they beat us. So overall, we've had a good record against West Ham. So those 2 teams, certainly we have to look to get 6 points. And then the game against Liverpool, I'm not getting my hopes up, but one thing that does give me optimism in that game is that Mikel Arteta showed that he can implement a system that can play against the big teams and allow us to be competitive. And we've seen it against Manchester City in the cup. He deployed a system, that 3 at the back system. He played Ainsley Maitland-Niles at left wing back, which was a surprise to a lot of us at the time. But then when you thought about it, a right footer playing on that side is going to help or stop them from cutting inside, and that's where they're dangerous. So he has the ideas, and he knows how to play against these big teams. So that's something that's definitely giving me optimism in these games. But like I said, I think the first 2 games are very important, and I think we'll get 6 points from the first 3 games. I think if we've got 7, that'll be a really good return.
Yeah, spot on, mate. Spot on. Rich, I want to get your thoughts on the first 3 games, mate.
Yeah, I mean, the fixtures coming out the other day upset me because every year you look for the fixtures, look for the games you're going to go to, and knowing that we're not going to go to any games, and it was like, let's just not bother playing it. That was my initial thought. I don't even want to bother. But I know that's obviously we have got to bother and we have got to play them now. So there's a lot of good away games in the early part of the season, which I'd love to have gone to, and we can't. So I'm a little bit upset about that. But it is what it is, that we're just going to have to get on with it, aren't we? I mean, I think we've been given 2 decent games to start the season with. I think Fulham away, traditionally we've done pretty well there. I think we lost maybe only once in the last probably 10 times that we played, and when I was in the Premier League before, I think we only lost once away there. So that's generally a good place for us to go. West Ham at home, as Rohan said, we generally do well against them as well. You're looking. The only thing that concerns me really is the fact that it's a very short pre-season. There's not going to be any friendlies, and I know that they've only just finished the previous season, but players have been on holiday, and they're going to come straight back in and almost playing games straight away. Now, some teams I think are going to adapt to that really well, and are going to start the season maybe flying, and maybe Fulham and West Ham might be 2 of those teams. We don't know. Whereas other teams might take a little time they might rest a few players who aren't quite up to the levels yet, fitness-wise. If they've maybe overindulged a little bit on holiday and stuff like that. So it's difficult to know exactly who's going to cope better with the short pre-season. And also as well, any potential transfers that might come in, it strengthens some of these teams. But for me, them first 2 games, we've got to be looking at 6 points here, realistically. And that's regardless of, whether we're going to challenge for the title, whether we're going to challenge top 4 or be, where we were this season. They're 2 games that realistically, as Arsenal, we should be looking to get 6 points here. Now, the thing with the Liverpool game is I actually think that playing them so early in the season, it could do us a favour, because I think they were, towards the end of last season, because they won the league so early and so easily, they switched their levels a little bit, didn't they, towards the end. And it's very, very difficult to pick that up again. And because it's such a short pre-season that they won't have many friendlies, I don't know if they've got any friendlies at all. I know we've got the Community Shield against them, but for me, I don't know how. I don't think they're going to start the season in the way they started last season. I don't think they will. So I actually feel that if we can get our act together quite quickly, maybe get some momentum from them first 2 games, I feel that we can go to Liverpool and get a result. Whether we can win, I don't know. I do think without having the fans in at Anfield is going to affect their home form this season. There's no way. The last 2 or 3 years, they hardly dropped any points at home, or even draw. They're winning every game. And I do think the crowd gives them that lift. And they're not going to have that this year, certainly for the first sort of half of the season, probably at least. So I don't feel they'll be as strong this year anyway, and certainly not at home. And it's a good time. Hopefully, it'll be a good time to play them. I believe it will be, because of the short pre-season and stuff like that. So new signings haven't had time to play friendlies, won't have had time to adjust into the team. So if they buy anybody, I'm not sure if they have yet actually, but if they buy anybody before the start of the season, they won't have had any games to adapt, will they? So I don't know. I'm not too bothered about playing them quite early on. I actually think it might be the best time to play them personally. And I wouldn't be surprised. And also as well, I mean, Rohan touched on it as well. Arteta knows we've improved against the big teams under Arteta, haven't we? Yeah. And it's going to be a big test this season, actually, to see if he can carry that on. And if we've got a lot of big away games, haven't we, early in the season, with the 2 Manchester clubs as well. And if we can get results in them 3 games, whether it's 3 draws or at least compete, not lose 5-0 and stuff that we have in the past and just roll over, then I think that's going to set us up for the season then. But, if it goes the other way and we get turned over by all 3 again, then, we know that we haven't made the improvements that we want. But I don't think we will. I think the end of last season showed that, didn't it? And I believe that the worst case scenario is we might go to Liverpool and lose, but we'll compete with them. And I don't think there's any doubt about that. We'll give them a game. And not like we haven't done that, have we, for ages against Liverpool?
No, we haven't. Our record's awful.
Over year after year after year. And I think this year's going to be different. We're going to compete with them. And I believe we've got an opportunity to get results. So, I think 7 points would not be beyond the realms of possibility. But actually 9 wouldn't even be a surprise for me. just because of. But again, we're going to have to see how teams start the season, because I say that I do think the pre-season is going to have an effect. I think there could be more injuries as well, actually, quite early on. I think you're going to get a lot of muscle injuries, hamstrings, and all that kind of stuff. That could be quite early in the season, especially for, Liverpool put a lot of intensity into their game, don't they? And they might suffer some injuries because of that. Can they keep that? With a very small pre-season, I don't know. But we'll see. I mean, I'm going for 7 points, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get 9. But we'll probably end up with 1.
That's good, man. Positivity. My thoughts personally. I think points-wise, firstly, I think we'll get 6 out of 9 points. That's the first thing. What I want to see, particularly when you do make a good point of both you guys about, particularly Richard, about the fans not being there, because I know we've gone to Liverpool a few seasons ago. I think it was Oxlade-Chamberlain's last game for Arsenal. We got slapped 4-0. That was a bank holiday, I think, in August. But the fact that the crowd's not there is most definitely a positive, because it doesn't give that atmosphere and that fortress at Anfield. And they haven't lost for a very, very long time. And I think I've mentioned with Arteta before, where we've had the sort of green shoots recovery last season, and you can see the dynamism in his forward thinking as a young dynamic coach. It gives us a bit more optimism when we come up against the big teams, because one thing I do want to see this season generally when we go away to the big teams, because you guys know what our record like. I think is it 26 matches, no wins, 10 draws, lost 16 and 1 clean sheet. And that clean sheet was 3 years ago against Chelsea. We drew 0-0. That has to change. It's not going to be easy. People don't go to these grounds and take 3 points, but they seem to be other teams that are probably mid-table teams or less than that have a structure and a way of going to the big teams and picking up points.
Crystal Palace, the amount of games they've won away from home at Liverpool, Man City, and they haven't got better players than us. It's all about the way the team's structured, isn't it? And Arteta's done that. So I believe we're going to start winning some of these big games this season away from home. I really do. Yeah,
I hope so. I just want us to go up. If we don't beat Liverpool, I just want us to go out and put a performance and make a statement of intent, which is important to show that we mean business. But like you guys, I think we'll beat Fulham away. No disrespect to them. West Ham's record against us at home isn't great, fans or no fans. So I think 6 points out of 9. But beyond, it wouldn't surprise me if we get 7 out of 9 personally. But it's about time we won at Anfield, for Christ's sake. Come on, man. Like this, it's been a long time, man. We can't get no rights. But I'm glad to get you guys' thoughts on that. The next subject I want to talk to you guys about, I'd be keen to know what you guys think, is about the Raul Snelly departure and the ongoings of, cutting back on scouts. We learned about Freddie leaving as first team assistant. We learned about Pat Rice leaving us so many years. A lot of scouts have left Arsenal, because we know that with sort of the scout system now, a lot of it is data analysis led. So maybe there's too many, as they say, too many cooks in the kitchen. In the last 3 years, we've seen Gazidis leave. We've seen Sven Mislintat go. Good old Sir Chips Keswick's gone. And obviously Raul Snelly's gone as well. It's a lot of change at boardroom level, which, to be honest, needs to happen. Obviously for the greater good, and it needs to be better. But we know sort of this November last year, David been at the 14, sorry, and but we know that Raul Snelly paid to that. He wasn't sort of on board. When Snelly was there, we brought in David Luiz, Denis Suarez, Pablo Mari, William Saliba, Kieran Tierney, Nicolas Pepe, Dani Ceballos, Cedric Soares, Gabriel Martinelli, and Willian. First, I wanted to get you guys' first initial thoughts of when you heard the news about Raul Snelly, taking on board that there was obviously an internal investigation into the Pepe deal as well. So I'll start with Richard. What was your thoughts on Snelly's departure?
To be honest with you, I never trusted him from the start, if I'm honest. he came across as a very, very shady character. I thought he was far too much in the pocket of that Kia Jarabchin, the agent, and I felt as though we were only ever going to sign players that were in his best interest as opposed to the best interest of the club. Now, I'm not saying that some of those transfers that you mentioned haven't been good transfers, because I think they have. I think the Pablo Mari deal looks a decent deal. I think the Pepe deal, although we possibly overpaid, it seems, could be a good deal for the club. He's a young player that's improving still. So, you know, there's a few good, obviously Danny Ceballos had a decent season in the end. So I don't think that all of the transfers that he was involved in were bad for the club. I just don't feel as though overall he was looking out for the best interest of the club. That was my feelings with him. And the fact that he's now gone, we're going to see the difference maybe in some of the transfers that we make. Are we going to be using different agents now, possibly? Are we going to see players coming in that maybe we wouldn't have even been interested in before, able to get over the line? Because, you know, he seemed as though he had a relationship with Lille, didn't he, in France, which got us the Pepe deal. Now we've got this Gabriel. This has been dragging on. Is part of the dragging on because Raul's now gone, not able to, you know, work that deal as much as he maybe might have done. So I think we're going to have a few. We're going to see what happens, I think, over the next few weeks through this transfer window now, to see the difference that it makes in terms of the sort of players that we get in, the sort of players that we go after, what the agents involved are, and all that kind of stuff. And maybe some of the transfer fees that we're paying. You know, there are rumours, isn't there, that Raul was maybe taking a bit off the top. Yeah. We don't know. It's obviously at the moment that's not come out. It's just rumours and stuff like that. But if that was true, then we might suddenly see the fact we're not paying as much money for some of these players. And if that's the case, then we can put two and two together maybe. But, you know, I'm not disappointed necessarily that he's gone. I think that Arteta and Edu between them, if they're going to now take virtual full control of the transfers coming in, to me, that's a positive step. Because what happened with Emery, as much as he wasn't the right man, he wasn't given the players he wanted. He was given players that the club bought, probably that Raul could get a backhander from, maybe, and he got the players that he was given as opposed to the players he wanted. He didn't want Herrera, he didn't want Pepe and stuff like this, and he was given players he didn't really initially want. So of course they was never going to flourish under him, and the team was never going to flourish. So now if Arteta's got a big say, like Wenger had a big say, if Arteta gets the players he wants now, or is more able to get more of the players he wants, that to me is a positive. So, but let's see how it goes. We don't know, do we? Maybe Raul leaving might end up being the worst thing that's happened to the club since David Dean went. We don't know yet, do we? But my initial feeling is I'm not disappointed that he's gone, and I feel as though we can actually move forward quicker now with him not being there. But time will tell, I guess.
Yeah. Cheers, Rich, mate. Rohan, what's your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, I think with the Raul situation, I think there was clearly a conflict of interests amongst the hierarchy. I think Raul wanted a certain type of player to fit a certain philosophy, and Mikel Arteta and Edu maybe wanted a different type of player. And I think, you know, having too many voices at times can be disruptive, and it can certainly, you know, hamper the progress you make in terms of transfer. And I actually think, I agree with Rich. You know, I think that the fact that he's gone now, and there's a real good possibility that the players that are coming in are going to be players who Arteta approves of. They're players that who he feels that can suit his style and philosophy of football. And yeah, going back to Raul Sanllehi, I'm like Rick said, I wasn't satisfied with what he did since he came in 2018. I mean, he's made a lot of comments previously that he's not been able to fulfill. You know, we go back to his comments about contracts and the fact that when players are 2 years of their contract, the club will make a decision as to whether to extend their deal or move them on. And I think, you know, initially that was really good to me, because this is a problem that we've had over the years, that we've had, you know, our star players be able to run their contracts down to the last year. And, you know, when they did want to leave, we couldn't be able to recoup the amount of money that their quality showed, you know, and we were kind of held to ransom in that sense. And I think, you know, like I said, I was happy with his initial comments. But if you look at the time he made those comments to now, you know, we've had Ramsey leave on a free. We've had Saka this season. Thankfully, we've managed to extend his deal. But again, he shouldn't have been in that situation in the first place. We look at Aubameyang. You know, he's extending his deal, which looks very likely to happen now. But again, he shouldn't have been in that situation. We look at even Mustafi. You know, he's out injured now, but he's on the last year of his contract. Yeah. You know, if we are looking to sell him on, you know, we're not going to be able to get a good value for him, because, you know, regardless of what we think of Mustafi, you know, he still is a player who could recoup decent money. But now that he's on his final year, you know, we're not going to be able to recoup the amount of money that we should really be getting. I mean, I think, again, Mustafi, the talk should have happened last season, where they're making discussions of whether to extend his deal or look to move him on. But the fact that they've delayed that one again shows me that he's not fulfilled that promise. And I actually do understand that, it is, he did come in at a hard time where there were a lot of players who were on contracts and wages that, other teams aren't going to look to meet. But then don't make the comments because you should have done your research in the first place, that is going to be a tough job. Yes, it's good to hear, but I'd rather have transparency. I'd rather people be clear amongst the hierarchy. And again, I think the other aspect with regards to Ravel is the fact that, this season, he was the person, what is widely reported, that he was the person who wanted to give Emery a lot more time rather than what he should have actually got. I don't know how he came to that decision, because if we look at Emery, he should have gone for me after Leicester, where we had the international break. And that would have been a perfect time for Arteta to come in, potentially, had we have been a little bit more proactive. But he seemed to be the one who was holding that deal back, or was giving Emery a lot more time. And I don't know how he came to that conclusion, because we look at Emery, the performances, both in and out of possession wasn't good enough. The style of football, there was no patterns of play. It was pedestrian, players taking too many touches, and just boring to watch. And when, out of possession, when we lost the ball further up the pitch, teams were able to transition through far too easy. There was a lack of midfield presence there to support the centre-backs. And that was the reason why Bernd Leno was facing so many shots. I don't know how he, I don't know what he saw that made him give Emery a lot more time. So, I think that overall, I'm not really satisfied with what he's done. And I think it's a good thing that he's left, because although it would have been better had he have left before the window started, because perhaps we would have seen deal.
Timing was not great, 100%.
But then we can look at the flip side. At least it's happened where the window is still open, and it is a long window. And now, Arteta and Edu are leading the charge. It's a big responsibility for those two now. Edu was a great servant for the club, but that's the past now. It's about Arsenal Football Club, and he's got to, he's a key person in terms of the transfers and the players that we bring in. And hopefully the players we bring in are players that, suit the style and philosophy Arteta is looking to instill.
Yeah, you both make great points. The thing is, I touch on, when we saw that interview with Laura Woods probably 18 months, 2 years ago, and with Vinay Venkatesham and Rouse Nelly. Now, you'd expect guys of that position to speak well and say the right language, and sometimes fans fall hook, line and sinker for what they say. But you make a good point, Rohan, about the contract situation, which a lot of Arsenal fans were like, looking and saying, okay, you're saying if players get to the last 2 years, then if they don't want to sign, then they can go. But I didn't expect Sinelli to walk into Arsenal and wave a magic wand. But if you're going to make a statement as bold as that, you need to stick to it. I mean, and you've seen with some of the contract negotiations, in terms of even with Saka, to me, it was obviously he was going to stay, but it was the length of time it took for that deal to actually happen. I don't know what Arsenal are doing, but I will touch on sort of transfers a bit later on in the podcast. But yeah, guys, thanks for giving your analysis on that. It's really insightful, man. Next subjects I want to talk about. It's a weird one. I'm going to give you my thoughts first. I'm going to come to you too. It's about, I've titled it Champions League and Arsenal, ? What's our expectation as fans? Because, we went from a period of between 98 to 99 season right through to 2016, 2017, 19 consecutive years in the Champions League. I hear a lot of Arsenal fans over the last few years talk about the importance of Champions League football and getting the top quality players in. And it had me kind of thinking to myself, I look at our record generally with the Champions League and Europe. And like I touched on earlier, for a club of our stature and history to only have ever won 2 European trophies is not good enough. I look at our Champions League record, 4 quarterfinals, 1 semi-final, and a final in almost 20 years. If you guys can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but guys viewing and watching, and you guys as my guest, what top quality players of Arsenal really would you say in terms of world-class stature have we brought in during sort of that 20-year period? And I'm left scratching my head. You could say Sanchez possibly, Ozil. So what's our expectation as fans of being in the Champions League? Because that season where we cocked up with Unai Emery, where we should have got Champions League qualification, I look at it now and I think to myself, I'm glad we never got in, because we would have went into that competition in the Champions League and got totally embarrassed in the European stage, because the level of football we was playing was the tedious. There was no pattern of play. It was boring, to be quite frank. So it may not seem like a question, but I want to know you guys' thoughts on the importance of Champions League and sort of the points I've made about it. How you know, we talk about Arsenal in terms of which ram down our throat as from the hierarchy. You know, the media throw it out every season. We have no money. We have no money. You know, we can't get the top class quality players in. So I just want to know you guys' thoughts on sort of your feel about Arsenal being in the Champions League and what we've done and just generally our European record. So I'm going to start with you first, Rich, and what your general thoughts are.
I mean, to be honest with you, I have never bought into the hype of the Champions League. I've never liked the competition at all. Okay, if we had a great chance to win it in 2006 with a final, I know we touched on that briefly before. If we'd won it that year, then as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't have cared if we never played in it again, because we would have won it and that's it. To me, it's more been a hindrance to our progression, actually. When you think under Arsene Wenger, particularly after 2006, because we lost that final, he seemed to be so determined every year. That was where he seemed to throw all his priorities into quite a lot of times. And every time we got knocked out of it, it threw the whole season. We ended up losing 3 or 4 league games afterwards. We got knocked out of the other cups as well because he seemed to be obsessed with trying to win that. And to me, maybe because I'm a bit old school, to me, unless you've won your league the year before, you shouldn't even be in the Champions League. Coming fourth in your league and competing in the Champions League, it's just ridiculous. You know, I just don't like it. As far as I'm concerned, we've got no chance of winning it. Let's be in the Europa League because we've got a good chance of winning that. I want us to see us win trophies. I don't care if it's the Audi Cup or whatever it is, right? Let's win trophies, man. We're Arsenal. That's what we should do. And we're not going to win the Champions League. Let's get real. If you just watch some of the teams in the Champions League, Bayern Munich would ruin us again, like they've done before. You know, we've got no chance of winning it. Let's be honest, right? We've got no chance of winning it probably for the next 5 years. So why be in it? I understand the money and all that kind of stuff's important, isn't it? But to me, if a player will only sign for you because you're in the Champions League, you can give them more money. They're not committed to the club. The one who joined us now, look at Aubameyang. Aubameyang's a top quality player. He's joined us when we're a Europa League team. To me, he wants to play for the club. He's happy to come and join Arsenal because it's Arsenal, right? Arteta said the same thing himself, hasn't he? He wants players who want to play for Arsenal. It doesn't matter what we're in. We need to be in Europe. Yeah, of course we do. We're a big club and we need to be playing in Europe. But to me, playing the Europa League, because we can actually win that, we've got to one final, one semi-final, and obviously this year was a disappointment the way we lost. But having said that, I'm glad we got knocked out early now. Otherwise, we'd still been playing this week, wouldn't we? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? With the Community Shield next week. So we would have had no break at all. So it's actually did us a favour getting knocked out. I know we didn't feel like that at the time. So to me, at this moment in time, you know, obviously, we want to finish in the top 4, don't we? Well, no. We want to finish as high up the league as we can. If that's 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, whatever it is. We just want to be as high as we can up the league. We certainly want to be higher than 8th because we're Arsenal. We shouldn't be 8th, should we? Let's be honest. And unfortunately, the Champions League's a consequence of finishing in the top 4 now. It shouldn't be, for me. It should be the top team only should go into it. Everybody, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th should be the Europa League. They should be the old Cup Winners' Cup like they used to have for the FA Cup winners, and that's it. You shouldn't finish 8th in your league and qualify for the Europa League, should you? Really? I mean, we won the FA Cup, so we've got in that way, which is fine. We've won a trophy. But you shouldn't finish 7th or 8th in the league and qualify for Europe. If you're only 7th or 8th good enough in our league, what chance have you got of doing anything in Europe? Nothing at all. It's just literally all about money. And to me, there's more. Football's not about that for me. And certainly from yes, I agree with you. Our record in Europe's terrible for a big club. It's embarrassing really when you think about it. We've won as many European trophies as Tottenham. You know what I mean? So that's embarrassing for us, really. We should, you know, a club of our size and our standing, the amount of domestic trophies we've won, we should have won 5 or 6 European trophies along the way, shouldn't we? In fact, we've lost lots of finals, haven't we? The Galatasaray one, Valencia won on penalties. The Champions League won, the Europa League against Chelsea, where we just fell to pieces. So we could potentially have 5 or 6, couldn't we, realistically? And we haven't. And that is embarrassing for the club, and we need to put that right. But for me, we're going to put that right in the Europa League because we've got a great chance of winning that competition. You look at the final last night, right? It was a decent game, but you can't tell me that now with the team that we've got with Arteta, we couldn't win that competition. We can, definitely. Next season, in fact, I think Arteta is going to be determined to win that because he knows that he made mistakes in that game against Olympiacos at home. And I think he's going to. If you remember when George Graham got knocked out, funny enough, the Champions League, the first time we played in it, we got knocked out. He admitted he made mistakes. Next season in Europe, we won the Cup Winners' Cup because he was determined to learn from what he'd done before and put that to the right use. And I think Arteta's going to do the same this year in the Europa League. So I'd be amazed if we don't do well in the Europa League. Whether we win it, I don't know, but we've certainly got a great chance of going a long way in that competition next year. And for me, I want us to win. I want us to be in competition. I want us to start the season with 4 competitions we can win. And if we're in the Champions League, that means we've only got 3 competitions we can win. And if you think about the Premier League, we're probably not going to win that. So that's only 2. Do you know what I mean? At least now we've got 3 cups that we've got a decent chance of winning. And if we put our mind to it, we could win all 3 of them. Realistically, we could. Not that we will, probably, but we've got a chance. So to me, we've got more chance of winning the Europa League. So let's stay in that for the next 2 or 3 years if we have to, because we can win that. But having said that, then that means finishing outside the top 4, which we don't want to do, because we're Arsenal. We should be in the top 4 because that's where we are. You know, we're the 3rd biggest club in England, aren't we? Realistically, historically we are, and we should be in it. But it's a dilemma for me because I do not like the Champions League at all. I think it's a horrible competition. It's corrupt, or it seems to be corrupt, with the refereeing and the money that goes on in it. And I don't know. I just don't like watching it. Players diving, rolling around. For me, that's not. I don't enjoy the football. I don't. And every single year we're in it, I've enjoyed it because we've been in it. And you want us to win it because we're in it. And every year it's just frustrating seeing us get turned over by these teams that are just better prepared to play in that competition than what we've been. You know, we shouldn't have been in it for the last 5 years. We were really, should we? Because look at the embarrassing exits: the 10-2 against Bayern Munich, getting turned over by Barcelona every year. It's just horrible. And I hated February and March for that reason, because you knew our Champions League exit was coming and it wasn't going to be pretty. It was going to be horrible, and we wouldn't recover from that for the rest of the season. So for me, I want to stay in it. There needs to be some way that we can make sure that we stay in the Europa League but still finish in the top 4. I don't know how we can do that. We need to find some way of doing it, because to me, that for the next 2 or 3 years, we're only, in terms of European competition, we're only Europa League level, aren't we? That's where we are. We're a good Europa League team, but we'd be a very average Champions League team. But having said that, Arteta's not had a go at it, has he? So maybe he might be able to prepare us better for these games. But I think I've had too many years of getting frustrated and disappointed with the Champions League that if I never see us in it again, I wouldn't be bothered particularly. It would just mean that we're finishing lower down the league. That's the only thing. And that's obviously, that would be the thing that would upset me more than not being in the Champions League. It's where we finish in the league, isn't it?
Yeah.
Domestic league's important. If we can win, you know, to me, I'd rather win the Premier League 10 years in a row than win 1 Champions League, because that's much more important to me. I'm not even, if we'd won it in 2006, it would have been great. But if we never win it, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. Honestly, I won't. As long as we win Premier Leagues. If we can win Premier Leagues, that's what matters to me. Let's win that. Let's put all our focus into that. Let's bin Europa League off if we have to. Let's win the Premier League. That's what I want. And then from there, if we're good enough to win the Premier League, surely we've got a good chance of winning the Champions League then, the year after, because we'll have a good team, won't we?
Exactly. Before I come to you, Rohan, guys, thank you for dropping in the comments. Arsenal Fan Circle and Russ Morgan. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much. Yeah, need to spend well. That's going to take a long time.
No chance, exactly, we've got no chance of winning it. Why be in it? I don't want to be in something we can't win. I know we're in the Premier League. We probably can't win that, but you never know.
Rohan, let me get your thoughts, mate, on the Champions League. Your general thoughts and us being in it.
I get what a lot of Rich is saying, and I do get understand his thoughts around it. For me, I see it a little bit different, because I see that the Champions League is a sign of us progressing as a team if we finish in those top 4 places. Because I get what you're saying about the transfers and the fact that we haven't, over the years when we have been in the Champions League, we should have brought in more top quality players. But I think right now we have the Arsenal's name will always have a good pull. It'll be able to attract players because of the history of the club. But I think we're moving to a time where players want to play in that Champions League, and you're able to attract a wider pool of players, if that kind of makes sense. And I think that I get that you want to be in a competition that you can win, and certainly right now we're a million miles away from winning the Champions League. But I want to see us under Arteta in the Champions League and how we fare against these teams. For me, it's not. Winning is great, but I always want to. I just want to see my team fight, and I want us to compete against these kind of teams. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you have to win the game, but it just means that we give them a good game. And I think that that's something we haven't done in the Champions League over the years, particularly in the last stage of Arsene Wenger's reign. And I think that for me, Arsenal was a bit guilty of not managing the tie a lot better than what he actually could have, particularly after the group stages. If we look at the AC Milan game going back, where we lost 4-0 at the San Siro, you lose like to a scoreline like that, that deficit is far too much for you to overturn it. We obviously nearly did it, winning 3-0. But again, the first leg you've lost the tie in the first leg, and again, against Barcelona, Bayern Munich over the years. The one that really disappointed me was when we played Monaco. Because that was the year where, we avoided Bayern Munich, we avoided Barcelona. We got a tie against a team that we were actually expected to beat. And it didn't manage that game properly, because if you remember in the home game, we went 2-0 down. It was a poor performance. Then towards the end of the game, Oxlade-Chamberlain scored a goal. He scored and it would have been 2-1. And for me, had we managed that game a little bit better, we would have went to Monaco with a 2-1 deficit in comparison to a 3-1 deficit as it was, because we went to push for that second goal and look to get the equaliser. We lost possession. They were able to transition, and Carrasco scores the third goal. And that's the fine margins of football, because then when you look at the return leg, we win 2-0, and that goal in the end was the difference between going through and not. So I think that with me, I want to see us in the Champions League under Arteta, and I want to see us how we compete against big teams. Right now we're not going to beat Bayern Munich. We're not going to beat these sorts of teams. They're so well drilled both in and out of possession. They've got top quality players. We struggle to put players in their starting 11. That's how much quality that they have. And I think that it doesn't mean that winning it isn't the be all and end all. I just want to see us compete, and that's something that I want to see us progress with. I want us to get into the top 4. And I think if we get into the top 4, it gives Arteta a platform that he can build with for the future. And like I said, if we're going to do well in the Premier League, we're going to finish in the Champions League spot, so we're going to be playing in it anyway, aren't we?
Yeah. So to me, that's the downside of it, really. But yeah, it's true, isn't it? Top 4 gets you in, and we need to be finishing in the top 4, because that's where we should be as a club.
Exactly. And I think I just want to see how we manage these games a lot more with Arteta, a fresh young manager. Yeah. I do think that football's moving at a time where these young managers with their new innovative ideas are overtaking the older managers, the likes of Carlo Ancelotti, Mourinho. You're seeing that, with Mourinho's style of football, it's particularly against the big teams, it's to sit deep, surrender possession, hit teams on the counter attack, and it was very successful in the past. But these new managers coming in are able to, exploit weaknesses there and impose their game, and the older generation managers are struggling with it. And you're seeing the likes of Nagelsmann. Arteta's showing what he's capable of doing. Lampard's done a good job so far at Chelsea. So I think that football's moving at a time where these young managers are a lot more exciting. And I just want to see how we do in the Champions League with Arteta. And if we are in the Champions League, let's say for 2 or 3 years, I want us to build from our performances from each year. I want to see progression. It doesn't mean winning it, but I just want to see us progress through the tournament.
Yeah, you make a good point in regards to the young, dynamic coach, because the issue I had with a lot of Arsenal Champions League campaigns, and this is even before we got to the knockout stages, is that you can't help who you play. There's big teams in the Champions League, but when you don't finish top of your group, you leave yourself open to get in a top side in the round of 16, and that was Arsenal's biggest issue for me, where they wasn't managing the game very well. And you're right in the sense of Arteta. If we do get in the Champions League, I want to see how his tactical awareness is used in those games, particularly in the group stage of the games, to actually get us in terms of qualification. So that's something I'm keen to see and keen to look at. Before I go on to the next subject, guys, thanks for the comments. Drop your questions in. Like I said, I'm on the road to 100 subscribers, so subscribe to the channel and hopefully you like the content. Next subject. This is an interesting one. I'm glad I got you two on. We're going to talk about Mesut Ozil. Now, I'm going to start with this, right? For very good reason. I've been on Twitter it'd be 10 years this October, right? Ozil joined us in 2013. In all the years I've been on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, going to games, Arsenal, I've never had an Arsenal fan ever say to me that I have an agenda, which is the buzzword with Arsenal fans, or you dislike this person until last week, right? So I'll give you the story. A well-known Arsenal fan on Twitter tweeted about Mesut Ozil, him being dropped by certain managers or not being in the team for footballing reasons. So I sort of added a tweet to that saying, add Freddie to that list as well. So for me, if you're going to say something, say it with your chest firstly. We can agree to disagree as Arsenal fans, but articulate your point in a way that it makes sense. And I might go, actually, you know what? I get the reason you're saying what you're saying and why you're saying it. Because there's two things that happen on Twitter. The first thing is, generally, and football fans, Arsenal fans, we know, when people disagree with you, they do two things, or three things, shall I say. They get personal and start abusing you, or they block you, or they mute you, right? So the guy was saying to me, "Oh, you don't know what you're for something's sake, and all you Arsenal fans, and this and that, and you know you got agendas." And the way he was talking to me, I thought I was John Cross in disguise. So he ended up muting me. But what I did was, I'm going to tell you something, right? Because I mentioned when we played Man City last season, December 15th, Arteta sitting in the Manchester City dugout, you know, he's heavily linked with the job. We're at home to Man City. We get absolutely slapped 3-0. Kevin De Bruyne a masterclass. And Freddie Ljungberg brings off Mesut Ozil. I can't remember what minute it was. It might have been 60 minutes after 60 minutes. Now, you remember the way Mesut Ozil left the pitch, rolled up the gloves, kicked the gloves, not happy. And we played Everton the following game. Now, Mesut Ozil wasn't in the team. Now, I thought it was interesting. Freddie Ljungberg was asked at the time. Now, he said that Mesut Ozil was injured, but I would not have picked him for the squad because I want to make a stance that it's not what I accept from an Arsenal football player, and that's my decision. Now, he still said that even after the game. So my point, gentlemen, was, you know, Freddie as well as the other managers before have left this guy out of the team. Now, with you, Mesut Ozil, I think Mesut Ozil must have arguably the best PR team in the history of public relations. They must work 365 days a year without a day off and twice on Sunday. Because, yeah, Mesut Ozil had a point in terms of, you know, the suggested pay cut of 12.5% and where the money was going. Yes, he does some amazing charity work and has some very strong views on humanitarian issues. I remember Mesut Ozil from, I would say, 2010 from the World Cup in South Africa. For 2-3 years, I thought the guy was in a different league. You know, his first season at Madrid, 25 assists. 2012-2013 season, his last season before he joined Arsenal, 29 assists. That was a season when Cristiano Ronaldo scored 55 goals. And we know the hoo-ha around a lot of Madrid fans upset, or players, sorry, shall I say, that Mesut Ozil was moved on. But I think Modric came into the Real Madrid team. I think Bale signed that season as well. And I want to get you guys' thoughts, but I want to say something. This is a quote from Carlo Ancelotti on the 26th of October, 2013. And he said about Mesut Ozil that his decision to sell him, he said he decided the departure of Mesut Ozil. I prefer Di Maria for the balance of the team. Yes, as Mesut Ozil may have more talent, it's true that Di Maria has less quality than Ozil. But on a profile of dynamism, character, and to help the team, I prefer Di Maria. Now, when you hear those comments, and this was 7 years ago, mind you, fast forward 7 years in his time at Arsenal, not his fault we gave him the contract that he did. I think personally, his performances for Arsenal, for the output that he's given and for the quality player that he is, has not been good enough. I thought he was lucky to get the contract that he got at the time because it went to the wrong player. It should have gone to Alexis Sanchez, but that's another issue. And we hear the reports about Sanchez being a bad apple and, you know, not being great in terms of his relationship with the players and for Arsenal. But hearing what you heard in regards to the comments of Carlo Ancelotti then many years ago and what you've seen with Mesut Ozil in terms of his time at Arsenal, yeah, I just want to get you guys' thoughts. So I'm going to start with Rohan first. What do you make of Mesut Ozil?
I think, you know, overall, you know, he has lacked consistency, particularly for the last 2 or 3 years for me. You know, although this is a player that I loved, you know, and I still do love it because, you know, on his day, you know, there's not many better players out there who has his vision and his creativity in between the lines. But I think, you know, with the situation that we have with Mesut Ozil right now, I think the best place to start is going back into 2018, where you know, Arsenal in a position where they had 2 of their prized assets in Alexis Sanchez and Mesut Ozil, both potentially leaving in the same window midway through the season. And obviously, with Sanchez going on to leave, Arsenal panicked. You know, they panicked. They couldn't let 2 of their star players leave. They put him under this 350 grand a week contract. He accepted it, and it is what it is. You know, we're in this situation now where we're struggling to offload him. And as for Arsenal fans, even for me, it's frustrating because in terms of our long-term goal and the longevity, I think the best thing that can happen for the club is for us to move Mesut Ozil on. But it's going to be tough, particularly with his quotes and what he said in The Athletic with David Ornstein, saying that he's reiterated his desire and his commitment to the club. And yeah, it is frustrating. But I think you have to look at things on the flip side of it. And I'm going to look at it from Mesut Ozil's point of view as well. That it's not his fault he's been put under this contract. Arsenal offered him this contract.
Yeah.
And one day he said that he's if we look at his career, he's on the latter stages of his football career. He's clearly on the decline. He's settled in London. He's not going to get a financial package as good as what he has right now. Why would he leave? And if you look at in terms of what Mesut Ozil is doing, he's not really doing anything wrong because he's at the end of the day, he's an employee for Arsenal Football Club. And if you go by what his quotes are saying, he's training hard, he's doing everything he can to be fit. And at the end of the day, it's down to Arsenal to pick him. And I think what I find strange is that if we look before lockdown and when Arteta first came in, and the games between before lockdown happened and all the way to actual lockdown, we played a 4-2-3-1 system. We had a midfield pivot of Xhaka and Torreira on a lot of those games, and Ozil played every single league game in between the lines, in the hole, providing creativity. And overall, he did lack consistency, but he did have a few good games. The first game against Bournemouth, I thought he played really well. Against Chelsea, I thought in that first half he was brilliant. Against Man United, he was really good. And overall, he did have a few good performances, but in terms of productivity, he lacked in that aspect. In terms of goals and assists, there could have been a lot more in that aspect. But I think then if we look after lockdown, he's went from playing every single league game to not playing any football whatsoever. And for me, I think it's more down to non-footballing reasons as to why he's not played, because I think there's two elements. There's clearly the wage cut. And for me, in my opinion, I don't have an opinion on this, because why should I have an opinion on this? Because it's his money at the end of the day. He's got that contract. It's his decision. And he did say, he wanted more assurances and more information about where the money was going. And I think it's also Arsenal looking to force him out. And I think, that's the reason why we're not seeing him play. And if you even look at his quotes, if you read in between the lines, he says that he would rather him not playing be more to do with, footballing reasons, along those kind of lines. So that tells me that he's not playing based on performance on the pitch, but based on things happening in the background. And I think that, had he have played a few games post-lockdown and then he had got dropped, we could say, it's more footballing reasons. But the fact that he's not played many minutes whatsoever, I think that tells me that it's non-footballing reasons. And obviously now we're in a situation where he's going to see out his remainder of his contract. For me, I think we've got to have him at least on the bench. There's no point in him being at home, doing nothing, collecting £350 a week wage. I just think that, at least have him on the bench. And let's say, for example, we don't sign a creative midfielder, a number 10 or an advanced 8 before the season starts. We've got 2 games against Fulham and West Ham. I want us to move Mesut Ozil on, because I think we can get a better player who can play that role. But right now, I would play him in those 2 games, because those are 2 teams that are going to deploy a low block more likely. They're going to surrender possession, and it's going to be down on us to impose our game. So we need a player who can drift in between the lines. And, whether he's declined or not, he has declined. He's still the best we have in terms of that fulfilling that role. I'd rather see Mesut Ozil play that position rather than Joe Willock, because Joe Willock, it's not in his nature to play in that role. He's more of a number 8 who's looking. His game is more on Aaron Ramsey, looking to make runs into the box and looking to make the difference in terms of getting on the end of crosses and whatnot. Mesut Ozil is still the best player we have, unfortunately, who can play that role, who can provide that pass that breaks these teams down. So if you look at, for example, Man United, they struggled throughout the course of the season to break teams down who, when they played against teams who were expected to beat, but they struggled because they didn't have that player to drift in between lines. They bring Bruno in, and whether he's he's won a lot of penalties, or not, he has made the difference in that sense. He has been that link to the front three. That's given them a lot more chances. So we do need to address that position. But let's say we don't address that before the season starts. I would have him in the team playing in that role, because he's going to give us more chance of beating those teams than without him, in my opinion.
Yeah, good points, right? It is. I mean, I think I'm going to come to Rich in a minute. I think for me, if someone's to ask me, do you remember that game that Mesut Ozil absolutely bossed it against, in an away game against the top 6? Or I'm sort of kind of scratching my head, mate, to be honest. And it's not, nobody doubts the fact that this guy's a talented footballer. Like I said, when I first saw this guy play between 2010 to 2013, I thought the guy is in a different league. You know, he comes to Arsenal in his first season, does okay. You know, goes on to win the World Cup for Germany. But you know what? You're right in the sense that he does have to feature. To me, has to feature next season. It makes no sense him sitting there.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's to me, it's logical. It doesn't make sense. He has to play, whether it be the Europa League, League Cup games, FA Cup games, whatever it is. It just, I mean, again, you know what? It comes down to the thing is he's still an Arsenal player. So when he had that interview with David Ornstein, some of the things he said was very, very damning. I think it reflected badly on the club, and I actually don't think it done Mesut Ozil that many favors, to be totally honest. Because for me, I look at it and think, does he have what's his desire to play football? I mean, and he knows that. We can't answer that as Arsenal fans, and that's the thing. And yeah, I'll let Richard come in with your thoughts, mate. What you think about the whole Mesut Ozil situation in an interview in his time at Arsenal?
I know I'm probably in the minority, but I love Mesut Ozil. I love watching him play. He's like an ice skater when he's on the pitch. He glides around. He's just phenomenal. And I could just sit and watch him all day. Now, you just said there he hasn't had a good game away at a top six. No one has. None of our players have. None of them. Not one of them players has had a game you can look back at a top six and think, they had a great game against Man City away or Liverpool away or wherever. None of them have they? So Mesut Ozil, what he needs is when he's got the ball, and I've seen this a lot of times, and this is in the last couple of years as well. He's got the ball, he's looking around for someone to pass to. There's nobody making the runs, nobody's doing anything. So he has to turn around and come backwards. So then he's ineffective in the game because he hasn't got the people around him to bring. When he had Sanchez playing alongside him and Sanchez were brilliant. For 2 seasons in particular, those two were unplayable together. They were fantastic. And once Sanchez started losing his head and wanting more money, wanting to go whatever it was, then you could see Mesut Ozil's performances dropped because he didn't have a player of Sanchez's quality to feed off. And at Madrid, he had players, like you mentioned about Ronaldo, you know, literally he thrived, didn't he, with Ronaldo playing with Ronaldo, with a player of that quality. He thrived with Sanchez. You know, then he had Iwobi. What was he meant to do playing in a team with Iwobi when Iwobi is his outlet to pass the ball to? You know, and earlier this season with Pepe, who, let's face it, he's got potential, and you know, I think he's improving, but he's still not that top quality player, is he? And you know, I think Ozil's got a lot of criticism for his contract, which isn't his fault.
Yeah,
the club offered him that money, and I agree it was a panic because Sanchez had gone. We can't lose both of them, so let's give Ozil the money to keep him, right? So it was a panic by the club. That's the club's mistake, not Ozil's, right? Ozil's not being picked in the team now for, it does appear, I agree again with Rohan, not for footballing reasons, because he was playing before. Arteta knows him. Arteta played alongside him. I think Arteta's been told not to pick him personally. I don't think it's Arteta's decision necessarily. I don't think it's always been Arteta's decision because he was picking him before every single game. So if it was for football reasons, he would be picking him again, wouldn't he? Even if he's on the bench or he's coming on or he'd be playing, wouldn't he? And he hasn't been. And it's like something, obviously, we know about the wage situation, all this kind of stuff when he didn't apparently want to agree to the cut in wages, and he gave his reasons for that, which is his reasons. He's entitled to his reasons. At the end of the day, anybody as an employee, when you're asked to give some of your wage up, you're going to want to know why, aren't you, and where it's going and all the ins and outs of it. And I agree that his interview, there's probably more issues of aroused from his interview than by not giving it, probably, I think, and it's not done the club any favours at all. But I do feel as though he's taken a lot of criticism, not just from the fans, I mean, particularly from the fans, but also from the media. Every single time, if he's not created 10 goals in a game, he's a waste of money. Why is Arsenal paying him 350 grand a week? You know, he's never been the sort of player, and even when he was at Real Madrid in that period that you mentioned, he was a great player, but he was never the sort of player that's going to win you a game on his own. He's never been a Kevin De Bruyne. He's never been that sort of player, is he? He's not going to get the ball, run past 10 players and score a goal. He's not going to do it. He never has done. Alexis Sanchez could have done that. Alexis Sanchez won us games on his own, didn't he? He was that sort of player, but Mesut Ozil's never been that sort of player. What Mesut Ozil needs is he needs the right structure around him to be able to produce because at the end of the day, he's all about assists, isn't he? He's not necessarily about scoring goals. He scores his fair share, but he's more about whenever he's got the ball, his head's up, looking for runners, looking for people to play the ball into. And unfortunately, for the last 2 or 3 seasons, he hasn't had anybody really that has made the right runs for him to be able to thrive in the team. And that's not his fault. And I'm not saying he's played well every single game, because of course he hasn't. But the team have. Look where we are. You know, he was playing when he first joined us. We won the FA Cup the first 2 seasons he was there. In his 3rd season, he got the most ever assists in the Premier League, or one off the most ever assists. That was a great season that he had. And then since then, obviously, his performances have slightly dropped. But while his performances have dropped, the team around him has got worse. And I don't, there's no question about that. We finished 2nd in the league in 2016. We finished 8th in the league this year. So in that meantime, the team's got a lot worse, hasn't it? That's not just down to him. That's down to the fact that some of the players that's left have been replaced with inferior players, and overall the level of the team's dropped. And unfortunately, Mesut Ozil suffered, or his output suffered for that reason as well. And he does, and yes, it needs to be sorted out. And he probably needs to leave the club simply because these issues that have gone on behind the scenes are not going to get sorted out, are they? I don't think he's going to get picked again. So the club should pay off his contract and get rid of him. To me, that would be the best thing to do. Not because I want to see him go, because I don't, because I think the guy's brilliant. I think he's one of the most naturally talented, gifted footballers I've ever seen play for Arsenal. He's up there in terms of his ability. I'm not saying he's as good or he's had as much influence on the team, but in terms of his natural ability, he's up there with Dennis Bergkamp in terms of what his capabilities are. He's not fulfilled it as often. Obviously, Dennis Bergkamp fulfilled it year after year after year, didn't he? But then Dennis Bergkamp played in a much better team. How effective would Dennis Bergkamp, even peak Dennis Bergkamp, be in this current Arsenal team over the last 2 or 3 years? How effective would he have been? We're never going to know because he didn't play in a team like that. But in terms of ability, Ozil's up there, isn't he, with him in terms of natural ability? Unfortunately, he's a different sort of player. Bergkamp could take the game by the scruff of the neck, couldn't he? And drag us sometimes. He did it quite often, didn't he? Drag us and get us results. And Ozil's never been that player, has he? And people think because he's on 350 grand a week, he should be playing centre back 1 minute, he should be left wing the next minute, he should be centre forward the next minute, scoring a goal. And if he's not doing all of those, then he should be in goal to save penalties. And if he's not doing all of those things, he's not earning his money. And that's ridiculous. That's not his game. And there was a few games before lockdown, actually, where he was almost dropping into the left back position at times in the game, right? Doing a job for the team he was told to do by the manager. And it's like, why on earth would you have Mesut Ozil in the left back position when he's going to that's not where his strength is. It's a waste of his time, him being there. It's not going to benefit the team in any way. So to me, you put Mesut Ozil up the pitch, you put a better midfield around him who's going to work, and you let him do his stuff in the final third. Don't even let him cross the halfway line, because he's useless in his own half. He's not going to tackle. He can't tackle. That's not his game. So don't put him there. Don't let him do that job. When he was asked to play, basically fill in and cover for the left back position in a few games, I'm thinking that is ridiculous. You might as well play Leno up front if you're going to do that, because you've got to play your players to their strengths, haven't you? You've got to, And this was Arteta. This is a coach who knows what he's doing. He wants the players to work because that's his method, which is fine. But you can't actually get Ozil to do that because you're never gonna get the best out of him. I would put him in the number 10 role, stick him up at the top end of the pitch, and let him do his work there. So then he's got enough energy to create stuff he needs to create. When he's running back to cover left back, when he's running back here, there, and everywhere, when he finally gets the ball in the final third of the pitch, he's knackered because he's done too much work. That's not his strength. You've got to play to your player's strengths, haven't you? And Mesut Ozil's strength is that, and he needs to play it around him, which he hasn't had. And that's been the problem he's had. And unfortunately, the way Arteta wants to play, I don't think Mesut Ozil is going to be suited to that, the system he wants to play, unfortunately. And he's got to go. It's no good saying, let's keep him on the bench for a season. No, either keep him training the kids to teach the kids about technique and about that kind of side of the game, because he's got a lot to offer, or pay off his contract and get rid of him. I don't think he can play in the system that Arteta wants to play. I think there's too much stuff off the ball for him to do that he's not going to do, because he can't do it. He could have maybe done it a little bit more effectively 5 years ago, 6 years ago. He's 30 odd now, isn't he? He's not in this game. He's not a physical player, is he? And unfortunately, you either play him to his strengths or you don't play him at all. And Arteta's obviously, if this is Arteta's decision, he's gone down the road of not playing him at all. In that case, then let him train the kids or work with the kids for the year till his contract's up, or pay it off and get him out and get it done. Because I'm sick and tired of hearing the media going about it, fans going about it, his wage and this, that, and the other, Mesut Ozil this, Mesut Ozil that. You know, it's taken over the club almost for the last 2 years. And I don't think it's helped anybody. It's not helped Ozil. It's not helped Arsenal. It's not helped the other players either, because it's almost like sometimes it's like, has anyone else played? Because all you hear about is Mesut Ozil. You know, it's like he's been the only one playing. So the situation needs to be resolved one way or the other. Either tell us, the club come out and tell us, or Arteta come out and tell us he's not going to be playing, and we're going to use him to help the kids, or we're going to use him to cut the grass, or he's going to sweep the terraces, or whatever he's going to do and earn his money, or we're going to get rid of him, we're going to pay his contract and get rid of him. But the club need to say, we kind of this hanging on again every week. Is Ozil going to play? And then when he's not in the team, it's a big story. Sky go on about it for half an hour, talk about Ozil. He's not even there. Let's talk about the players that are there playing, not Mesut Ozil, who's gone to Turkey on holiday or wherever he was for the cup final. You know what I mean? That situation needs to be stopped. There needs to be a line drawn under it, one way or the other. It needs to be resolved before the season starts. Because if the first game of the season comes round and we're still talking about Mesut Ozil and he's not even in the squad, we're going down the same route again, and that's no good for anyone. It's got to be resolved. It's got to be sorted out.
Yeah. What I'll say, when I was saying, Rich, about and Rohan, you can cut both of you. When I was talking about, can you remember a good performance in Mesut Ozil against the top 6 side? I'd even broaden it out and just say, generally speaking, forget his wages. I'm not talking about it. I'm talking about his output. He's our best. If he's our best player in terms of his creativity, even whether you like Emery or you didn't like him, when he brought him back into the team, for me, there was plenty of games still where even when Ozil was playing, he wasn't creating anything. And also, what I'll say as well is,
he can't create stuff.
I know what I was going to say. Even I don't know, you must have mates of other football clubs that watch Mesut Ozil, and they must give you your opinion of him. And I know a lot of my football mates, in terms of who are not Arsenal fans, always say to me, in regards to Mesut Ozil, that they've never known. I wouldn't say they've never known a sort of a fans that particularly love Mesut Ozil sort of make every sort of conceivable excuse, possible reason as to why he doesn't perform, whether it's the strikers, the defenders. Of course, when he came from Madrid all them years ago, they was a top quality. Some of the players had in that side. Of course, he's going to play better, but you come into Arsenal, unfortunately, it is a bit of a downgrade if you're going to compare us against Real Madrid. But I just think, for me, what's annoyed me, not so much even the Mesut Ozil or the interview, I think this is our biggest transfer window, personally, for about 6 years. But the focus is still on Mesut Ozil and creativity, and I just want it done. I want him gone, not because I dislike the guy personally, because it's taking up too much time. It's this is a massive transfer window. There's other areas of the team that, as you guys both know, we need to address, and we need to address the spine of the team. But I'll come on to transfers a bit later. So it's good to get you guys' opinions on Mesut Ozil. I see some of the comments come up from Arsenal fan circle. I agree in terms of he said about from Mesut Ozil's ability and class as a player, you would expect, irrespective of personnel that's been at Arsenal, you can still shine as a quality player, and I would expect 7 out of 10 minimum performances from him. But unfortunately, any time at Arsenal, particularly in the last 2 and a bit years, I just think that's been lacking completely. But now, guys, it's great to get your opinions about Mesut Ozil. It's a hot topic, and what I will say is, I think it's got to a point with Mesut Ozil, it's not even for me a case of whether you like him or you don't like him anymore. It'd be interesting to know what you guys think before I finish up on it. That if you mention the guy's name, he has an army, a cult following, that if you say anything about him, you need witness protection, FBI protection. It's crazy. Like, the fan base they're never going to totally unite. They just won't. It's just not going to be like that. But
we need to get behind our play. At the minute, he's an Arsenal player. I mean, will I start him in the Premier League games? There's some games I probably would start him. I agree with what Rohan said. Maybe the first 2 games would be good games for him to play, probably. And games like that, would I play him away at Liverpool, away at Man City? Probably not, because you need workers in there who are going to do the work off the ball. But there's certain games I'd probably play him in. You could, if he was going to stay the whole season, you could look at maybe 10, 15 games that you say, yeah, how much he contributed to the team, and then go from there. But yeah, there's certain games I think I would pick him in. Yeah, but not all of them. No, not necessarily all of them.
Circle just said, Richard, would you start him in Premier League games? You just kind of answered that, really.
Sorry, going back
to go on, mate.
Yeah, and going back to Ozil, my thoughts on that, but I'm assuming that, for me, in this transfer window, a creative 8 or a number 10 is just as important because, we're expected to win are going to determine whether we finish in the top 4 this season. And right now, let's say if we don't have a creative midfielder, I'm saying that I would play Mesut Ozil in that number 10 position because the first 2 games are against Fulham and West Ham, and they're going to be against teams where we're going to have to impose our game. So we're going to need a person in between the lines who's going to provide.
That's where we struggled. At the end of last season, they were the games we struggled in because we didn't have a player that could open teams up. Yeah. And Mesut Ozil is at the moment the only player we've got that's got that capability of doing that, isn't he? So I totally agree with that. Yeah. And
let's say we bring Coutinho, for example, that I would start him with Mesut Ozil, but right now,
exactly. Yeah,
we don't have that, and I think the best way we can win these first two games is, for me, if we have Mesut Ozil in that team, because he is the best player we still have right now, whether he's declined or not, because he has declined for me, but he's the player that we have who can provide a connection to that front three and give them chances to score goals or get an assist, just like the way Bruno does it. Not the same level of player right now, but again, a similar type of player in the sense that they're able to drift in between the lines and provide a connection.
Yeah, we'd have probably finished 6th in the league if Ozil had played in some league. I think we'd have finished 6th in the league if he'd played. We could have even finished it could have even finished 5th if he'd played in some of them games, like maybe Aston Villa away, some of the home games, where we struggled to break teams down, and I just feel as though we would have got a lot more points on the ball. I think we could have beat Tottenham. That Tottenham game, I think we would have won. Stuff like that. So, I agree. There's definitely games that he can be effective in and can win us points. And at the end of the day, if he's going to stay at the club and he's going to be earning 350 grand a week or whatever he's earning, if he's earning, £100 a week, it doesn't matter. If he's there earning money, he should be able to contribute something, and he still can contribute something on a pitch if he's given the opportunity to. Yeah, if he gives us 30 minutes, let him give us 30 minutes. Give us 30 minutes in a game, win us a game, and then take him off or bring him on for 30 minutes, whatever. Yeah, let him contribute something.
Sorry, Rick. We've brought in Willian, and the thing is, off the top of I'm going to be a bit random. I think it's all well playing whether you play him in a 10 role or he's in the team, but particularly with the midfield area, you've got to have the right midfield players around him. So, for example, if you had a Partey and a Decore with him, then he's definitely got no excuse to perform, because you've got a box midfield player and you've got a guy who's arguably in Partey one of the best defensive midfield players in Europe. But yeah, let's move on from Mesut Ozil. There's other things to get through. But
whenever you bring up whenever you bring up Mesut Ozil, you're going to get a 5-hour conversation.
It is, mate. It is.
And it needs to stop because it is too much now. I love him, but it's too much. Everywhere you go, it's Mesut Ozil, it's Mesut Ozil, that Mesut Ozil is 350 grand a week. What's going to happen if we give Aubameyang £300,000 a week? Are people going to be constantly bringing up that every time he misses a penalty or misses an open goal or something? Are they? I don't think they will. But Mesut Ozil's going to get the stick about it constantly, isn't he?
I think you know why they're rich, don't it? Because because Aubameyang's performed in a team. Let's be frank, with Arsenal in the last 3 years, where we're nowhere near sort of good enough. But his goal return and his consistency is why.
I don't get wrong. I love Aubameyang. I think he's brilliant. I think he's brilliant. But ultimately, if we're going to pay him 300 grand a week, that's a lot of money. What does he need to do to justify that? Has he got to score 40 goals next season on that money? Or will people say, well, you're getting 300 grand a week, you should be scoring 40 goals a season? Because that seems to be the mentality of a lot of our fans.
Yeah. Did you see that question? Did you see the question from Ask Fan Circle channel? He said, ask the panel who you would give more production, Willian or Ozil?
That's a good question, actually. You'd imagine Willian, from what you've seen of him at Chelsea the last couple of years, you would say Willian is likely to give us more than Ozil, but they're different players, aren't they? So it depends on the system and the way we're going to play. In certain games, Ozil might be able to give us more in certain games, but in other games, Willian's going to be a lot more effective, isn't he? So it's I don't know. We've got Willian, so let's see what he can do for us.
Yeah, it is hard because I don't know what you guys feel. I think with Willian, which we'll come on to. Now, let's move on to transfers, actually. Sorry. I'm going to start with this before I come to you two, but I don't know what it is with Arsenal, man. Arsenal fans it just drives us mad. Like every summer or even January, why does it seem that whenever we're not even linked with a player, but a player that we are at the point where we're gonna potentially buy him, it seems to take absolutely forever. I mean, I remember when Lacazette joined Arsenal and Aubameyang joined Arsenal and Kieran Tierney joined Arsenal. I mean, Lacazette's medical must have went on for about 20 years. It just seemed to it took forever. It seems to take so long. I don't know whether it's the guys in the hierarchy. Yes, I totally understand with certain transfers that certain negotiations have to be done and it takes time. But when I compare us to other clubs, it just seems we move very, very slowly. But I'm going to come on to in terms of our transfers. We've got Willian in on a 3-year contract. Yeah, I mean, nobody doubts his quality. Nobody doubts that he's got ability. I think we're still unsure in terms of where he's going to play, but I think personally he'll feature a bit more centrally, even though he can play out wide. Because I think we struggle in terms of linking the attack to the midfield. Absolutely. So guys, yeah, I want to get your thoughts on, and also, sorry, the two players. So Willian at first, and I've mentioned this before in terms of the Gabriel situation, which ties in with what I'm saying about how Arsenal deal with transfers. I mean, this one has drove me completely bonkers. Depending on what source you listen to, you know, Napoli's going to gazump him. Man United are going to gazump it. Apparently, Everton were the first team to get hands on him and he had a medical there, but he didn't want to join, or he's actually signed for Arsenal. But from what I sort of gather, Arsenal sort of got there and it will sort of kind of get done. I hope I don't leave with egg on my face and he turns out for someone else. But with Gabriel, he actually excites me. I don't know why. I don't know if you guys are familiar with, I think it's Adam Smith of Get French Football News, and he covers a lot of the stuff in Ligue 1 in terms of, you know, progression of how Gabriel's played this season. Obviously, the French league finished a bit early, unfortunately, but he said Gabriel's better in a 2. Probably could play in a 3, but has been better in a 2. I think he played next to Jose Font there in Lille, ex-Liverpool, ex-Southampton, ex-Portuguese centre-back. But he said if he were to liken Gabriel to any type of centre-half within recent years, retired or playing, he would liken him to Rio Ferdinand. So if he's half as good as him or as near enough as good as him, I'd be very happy with that. So guys, I want to get your thoughts on Willian and the potential arrival of Gabriel. I'm going to start with Rohan first.
Yeah, I think with Willian, initially I was quite opposed to this deal. You know, I felt that, again, we're getting another player from Chelsea who's towards the latter stages of his career. But then I did think about it, and I read a few articles and started to analyse it for myself. And I do think he gives us a lot of benefits in our team. You know, he's a player, you know, with a lot of Premier League experience. He's got a lot of experience in general. He's a Brazilian international. And I think, you know, he's also got the knowledge of winning trophies, that winning mentality. So I think that these attributes and traits that he has will certainly benefit the younger players within the squad, the likes of Martinelli, Saka, Nelson, and Ketty, all these types of players. And I think, you know, when I did think about it, particularly when Arteta spoke about him, I think, like you said, Albert, I think we'll see him in central positions. I think, clear to me, when I read through the lines, Arteta's looking to implement a system that's similar to what Pep does at Manchester City. It's like it's a 4-3-3, but it's utilising a lot differently compared to the way Liverpool used it. They have one holding midfield and they have 2 advanced creative 8s who drift in between the lines. And I think he might, you know, if Willian does feature in certain games this season, he'll play more centrally and be that player who provides a link between midfield and attack. And yeah, with Willian, I think for me personally, I like him in the wider areas. But if Arteta sees him his position in the team more centrally, then yeah, let's see what happens. But I think going back to our dealings with Chelsea over the years, I do think that this deal is a lot different to the Cech and the David Luiz deal. Because if we look at Petr Cech, when he left Chelsea, Thibaut Courtois did really well on loan at Atletico Madrid. He came back. He took his number 1 spot. Petr Cech wanted first team assurances. Chelsea couldn't give that him. So they deemed him surplus to requirements. So he came to Arsenal where, you know, he was able to get first team football. So we brought in a player there who was, you know, deemed, surplus to requirements for Chelsea. And it's the same with David Luiz, last season, well, the season before now, that Frank Lampard didn't see him in his long-term vision and his philosophy. So he moved him on. And again, another player who he saw surplus to requirements. But with Willian, it's clear to me that Frank wants to keep him for at least another year. Obviously, that they've got an exciting front 3 on paper in Werner, Ziyech, and Pulisic. And if they gel together on the pitch, this certainly could be a dangerous front three for opposition. But I think that the experience that Willian had was certainly a trait that he wanted to keep for another year. So I'm actually quite happy we brought in a player that, yes, it's on a free and it's still a player who's definitely towards the latter stages of his career. We brought in a player that Chelsea wanted to keep for another year. So I think he'll give us a lot of attributes. I think experience is something that we lack in this team. Good experienced pros. And like I said, I know a lot of people, want young players to play a lot of games. But for me, I look at it on the other way. I think you need a lot more experience and you need younger players to be guided by experienced players. And that's how you're able to progress. Certain players in this team, over the years, young players have played far too many games. And there's been a reason as to why we haven't been able to achieve consistency in the league. Look at Guendouzi. He starts well in the season for the first couple of months, but then he dips. If you look at Emery's first season, he played him continuously regardless of the fact that his performances were poor. And that's been the problem, that we've had a lot of reliance on young players. And I'd rather have experienced players that, we know more than likely what they're going to give to us. So overall, I'm quite happy with the signing. I think it's a signing that's a good start, and that's it. We still have to address the key areas. And going to Gabriel, I hope we get this done. I think we will, because I wrote a blog on him, an article. So I hope we got him.
I need to read it. Yeah.
I've watched a bit of him at Lille, and he's a player that really excites me. He's got such a high ceiling. I don't think some people realise that he is raw and he will make mistakes. But under Arteta, I think that we've got a player who suits the philosophy of football that he wants to play. We need players across all the team, from goalkeeper all the way to forward. We need players who are comfortable on the ball, and he certainly provides that. In terms of his style of play, he's more of a player who he likes to play long balls over the top, and he's had a lot of success with that. In terms of breaking the lines and providing progression through deep with intricate passes, he still needs to develop that in his game. But like I say, he's got a lot of desirable attributes, and certainly an eventual partnership of potentially Saliba and Gabriel is very exciting to me. We've got two players who have incredibly high ceilings. I think if we bring him in, I wouldn't bring him straight away in the Premier League, because the French league in comparison to the Premier League is a different animal. The pace and intensity is far more ferocious, and there are aspects that he needs to work on. I think this is why it's so important to get this signing done quickly, because to allow him to be able to gel within the team, integrate himself within the side, and just build chemistry with other players. And I think if we are delaying with this deal, I think a good start, would maybe to start with three at the back, with David Luiz from the centre and have Saliba and Gabriel either side of him, so to ease him in slowly. But overall, I think hopefully we can get this done, because I think we've got a player that's very, very, very promising. I think one aspect he needs to work on in this game is sometimes his reading of the game. He doesn't know when to push up and when to drop off, and that's an essential attribute you need, particularly if you're going to play in a back four. In a back four, you can get away with it because you've got cover in behind you if you push up. Just like David Luiz, he's had a lot of success in that system because he gets a lot more freedom to push up in midfield and break the lines. But yeah, overall, I'm really happy with this, the potential signing. Hopefully it's the start, because I do think we still need at least two more additions to two different areas.
Yeah, Rich, let's get your thoughts. I'm going to come on to some other players, but firstly, Willian and Gabriel.
Yeah, just quickly going back to what you said at the beginning, actually, about it seems to take Arsenal a long time to get transfers done. Actually, does it? Or is it just the media build them up 3 or 4 weeks before the deals even started to happen? So it feels as though it's taken us a long time. You don't seem to hear a lot of stuff in the media about other teams buying players until they buy them. With us, it's all speculation before anything's ever happened. And I don't know whether that might be why it seems like it takes us longer, because the process is the same for everyone, isn't it? The players have got to do a medical, they've got to agree terms, the transfer fee's got to be agreed, and all this kind of stuff. So I don't think we're necessarily slower. I just think it's pushed out in the media a lot sooner when it comes to Arsenal. If a player even gets off a bus in London, anywhere in London, he's going to be joining Arsenal, and suddenly it's all over the media, and then 3 or 4 weeks later we haven't signed that player. What are Arsenal doing? Why haven't they signed him yet? And I think that's a little bit of it as well, to be honest with you. But it's been like that for years, hasn't it? So we're used to it now. We know that. To me, I don't really listen to rumours until we see a picture of him in the kit on the website. Yeah, we know they've signed. And other than that, I don't follow the transfer rumours that much, because to me, we've been through it so many times. How many times are we signing Higuain? Do you know what I mean? Every year for about 5 years.
A Draxler.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, obviously we've got Willian done. Brilliant. I'm happy about that. I think he's a great player. I think he's going to help the young players that we've got. The fact he's in business with David Luiz, they're good mates. I think that's a big help as well. So he can settle straight in. He knows the Premier League. To me, that was a no-brainer on a free transfer. That's a good deal that we've done. People saying a 3-year deal for someone who's 32. Well, if he stays fit, he doesn't play like he's 32. He still plays like he's 25, 26, doesn't he? He's still got pace. He's still got the ability. So that's a great signing for me. I'm excited about him. I'm looking forward to seeing him play for us. At the moment, he's the only one that we've actually done. So, yes, Gabriel, I agree. I don't know that much about him personally. I've seen a few clips of him. He's a young defender. The fact that there seems to be a lot of clubs after him for me, that's a good sign, because other people have seen the potential as well. Obviously, if Arteta, for me, any player Arteta wants, I want us to buy, and I don't care if I know anything about him. If Arteta wants him, for me, that's good enough, because we need the players Arteta wants to buy. And if Arteta has targeted Gabriel as the defender he wants, then that's, for me, that's good enough. Let's get him in then if we can. Let's get that deal done. And whoever else Arteta wants to buy, whoever it is, I'm behind anybody that Arteta wants at the minute, whatever player he wants. If they're 16-year-old, if they're 35-year-old, I don't care. If Arteta wants them, then let's get them in, because that's important, isn't it, for going forward. But William, I think William's a great signing, and I'm looking forward to actually seeing him play for us, because I've thought he's a good player at Chelsea for years now. I've always rated him. You don't like him when he plays against us and does well, which he tends to do, but he's a great player. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one, and hopefully he won't be the only one, will he? I'm sure he won't. I think we will get another 2 or 3 in. I'm sure we will.
Yeah, the reason why I bring up the thing about Arsenal. Let me read out this comment from DWTT. Thanks for the comments, guys. Arsenal fan circles, or Dave Hughes. Thank you, Richard. I agree. Until they put on the shirt, then they are just another player on another team. My heart can't take up the up and down transfer market. The massive is the heart rate. It's very true. The only reason I mentioned about the Arsenal, the way they do a transfer, because I look at this transfer market so far. Was it Man City have got in Ake, Torres, and they're linked with, I think, Martinez and Koulibaly. Chelsea have got in, obviously, Werner and Ziyech. Chilwell is looking like it might get done. And obviously, Kai Havertz. Liverpool have got the fullback in, let me get his name right, Kostas Tismarkas, I think it is, for the cover. So it's just, it is frustrating as an Arsenal fan, but all I would say to us as fans, don't do it to yourself, man. Just wait till they're in the shirt and then, be happy and smile, and we've got that's our player, sort of thing. So
there's always speculation around Arsenal and transfers. There always has been. There's always speculation, isn't there? We're linked with 50 players every single transfer window. We're not going to buy 50 players, are we? So some rumours seem stronger than others. Obviously, the Gabriel ones looks like it's probably going to happen. Let's be honest. The news coming through is quite positive on that one. But again, until the club announce it, then it's like, I don't know, because none of us know. If he ends up going to Man United, then what can we do if they've offered him more money or whatever it might be? I don't know, but let's wait and see. I mean, I think this one will happen. Actually, I do think it will, and if it does, I'll be excited, because it's a player Arteta wants, and he's a young player, and I think he's got good potential. And yes, I don't think he'll be playing every week at the beginning. I think he's got to adjust and adapt to the Premier League. I think coming out of the French league, not many defenders at that age are going to come straight into the Premier League, are they? And be a top quality player. It's going to take. I mean, remember when Koscielny, we got him, didn't we? He came in and he was okay at the beginning, but he wasn't. He didn't set the world on fire, did he? So we can't expect miracles from him. But let's get him in. He's a young player. He could be here for a long time. As I said, build Saliba and Gabriel as a central defensive partnership going forward. Could be a great base for the team, couldn't it? It could be. We haven't seen either of them play for Arsenal yet, though. They both might be terrible, But let's hope that they're not. Let's hope that they can adapt quickly, young players, and they can take it on and be great, because that's the one area of the pitch that we've struggled, isn't it? We haven't had 2 decent centre backs, really. I mean, I thought Mertesacker and Koscielny had a good partnership for a while, but we haven't had 2 great young centre backs, have we? And if that's what we've got going forward, then that would be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So guys,
we haven't seen him play yet, have we, for us? You know what I mean? We haven't seen Saliba play. He's a big unit and he looks good. But let's wait until he's played 10, 15 games before we say how good or not he is,
Yeah, so guys, for guys that are viewing it, yeah, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Guys, follow my two expert guests as well, please, Rohan and Rich. The link is in the description. Guys, I want to touch on two other players pretty quickly. Thomas Partey and Ainsley Maitland-Niles. I'm going to start with Maitland-Niles first in the sense that I would say, speaking right now to both of you and the guys viewing, listening, I'm 50-50 with it. That's the first thing. Secondly, I think, say for example, he hadn't put in the performances in the semi-final and the final the way he did, would people's opinions be a bit more different in terms of whether Ainsley should be sold or not, or would they want him to go? That's the first thing. And as for Thomas Partey, when he was first linked with Arsenal, I don't think it had any legs. That was my first initial thought, because I thought, why would this guy leave Atletico Madrid to come and join Arsenal? That was the first thought. But I think it was quite obvious to me from probably the last 2 or 3 weeks that this one literally will go to the wire. It's going to take a lot of time. I think if the reported release clause is what it is, it sort of confuses me a bit of Arsenal, guys, in the sense that we get told we haven't got any money, but what is we haven't got any money? What is the scale of what how much does a release clause have to be for you to activate, if you to get the player that actually we do need to help bolster the team? So yeah, guys, I want to get your opinions on Thomas Partey and Ainsley Maitland-Niles. I'm going to start with Rich.
I think Ainsley Maitland-Niles, to me, hasn't quite yet managed to fulfil the potential that I thought he had. I remember there was one game near the sort of start of him breaking into the first team when he played in central midfield. I think it might have been against Chelsea, actually. And he was absolutely brilliant that day. Or maybe it was Man City, actually. But anyway, he had a great game in centre midfield, didn't he? A couple of years ago. And he was brilliant. I'm thinking, you know what? He could be great in that position. And then he never really got played there again. Now, Arteta's not been generally playing him there either. Now, is there because they see him in training? Emery didn't play him there. Wenger didn't play him there very much, did he? So what is there an issue there with him in training? Is he not good enough in central midfield generally? I don't know. He's never quite fulfilled that potential for me. I like the guy. I think he's an Arsenal lad through and through, isn't he? Come through our academy, and I think we all love them sort of players, don't we? And he does give 100% on the pitch, doesn't he? He's a committed player, and I do like him. I'm just not sure whether he's going to ever fulfill that potential. I mean, a couple of years ago, I actually compared him a little bit to Michael Thomas, because Michael Thomas started off playing right back and then ended up playing in midfield and being brilliant midfield player for us. And I sort of saw similarities with Ainsley a couple of years ago, starting off at right back and then moving into midfield, but that's never happened. And I don't know. I don't want him to go, if I'm honest. I don't. I'd like him to stay because I do think he's a good squad player. He can play a few different positions, and he's played left back, he's played right back. He can play a wing back position with a 3 at the back quite well on either side. And I still think he could play in midfield in certain, in certain circumstances, in certain formations, he probably could. So he's got a lot to offer in that sense. But if it meant getting rid of him to enable us to get Thomas Partey, then to me, I wouldn't think twice about that. Thomas Partey to me is the player that would transform our midfield, transform our team, and we could go not only from challenging from a team that could challenge for the top 4, but we could actually go to the next level with Thomas Partey. I honestly believe that. I've seen him play lots of times for Atletico Madrid. I think he's absolutely brilliant. But apart from him being a good player, he's exactly the player that we've been lacking for probably 4 or 5 years or more, probably since Vieira went, if we're honest. Yeah. He could be that important for us. And I don't, even if it means having to sell half our squad to get him, I would do whatever it takes, because to me, he's that important for us now. With the team that we've got, imagine having him in there, in that midfield. He would boss the midfield. He would boss the Premier League. He's got all the attributes, hasn't he? The physicality. He's got the technique. He's got the energy to get up and down. He's just everything that we need. And that would be, for me, that would be the most excited I'd probably be about a signing, probably since Alexis Sanchez, if I'm honest, since we bought him, or maybe Aubameyang, actually. I was excited about Aubameyang, but it's very rare that we buy players that are at that kind of top level like that. And he is a top level player. he's definitely the top level player. So yeah, I mean, I would do anything that it takes to get him. You know, we seem like we're clearing the decks a little bit. Are we clearing the decks so that we can give Thomas Partey whatever he needs, whatever he wants? Is that what we're doing? I don't know. And Aubameyang as well, obviously, for his contract, I suppose. But we need to do whatever we can to get him. And if Ainsley's going to be a part of that process, if we have to sell Lacazette as well, maybe, then I think we should do that, because Thomas Partey is going to transform our team and he's going to take us to another level. And, you know, I'm excited about that, and I'm trying to not be excited because we might not get him, and in fact we probably won't. But just thinking about Thomas Partey and our team, it's like, wow, come on, what more could we want? You know what I mean? It's like he's the missing link, and a player like him has been the missing link for a while. And it looks like this is getting closer and closer, I'm getting more and more nervous about it, because if we miss out on him now, we're probably never going to get him, are we? This is our chance to get him. This is our one chance to get him. And if we've got to get his release clause, pay the money, just pay the money, sell half the team, pay the money, get Ozil off the books, whatever it takes, just do it, get Partey in, and we'll go from being where we've been. So I think we'll be serious challengers for everything with a player like him around what we've got, and with Arteta as manager. And we've got to do it.
Yeah, Rohan, before I come to you, sorry, mate. It's a comment from DWTT. Selling Bellerin Guendouzi before Maitland-Niles would be my preference if it helped us get Partey. Yeah, I agree with that. I think also as well, there's other players that I would put in the queue to sell at Arsenal before Ainsley Maitland-Niles, if I'm being honest. But Rohan, I'm going to come to you. What's your thoughts, mate?
With regards to Ainsley Maitland-Niles, you know, he's a player that really frustrates me, because I do see a lot of quality in him. He's got a lot of attributes that are really desirable, particularly in terms of the way you want to play the modern game. You know, he's got athleticism, he's good on the ball, and defensively he has improved, particularly since Arteta's came in. And like I said, if we go back to when Arteta first came in, when Bellerin was still recovering from his injury, Ainsley was the regular player playing at right back, and he played more of an inverted role because to accommodate Saka, because you know we had to play Saka on at left back on paper. On paper, I say, because we had Tierney both out injured. So Arteta implemented a system that allowed Saka to flourish by allowing him to express himself offensively, having Xhaka fill in at left back, and that meant that, because one of the problems that we've had with Arsenal, particularly in the Emery, is that when we lost possession further forward, teams were able to transition through us far too easily. So with Xhaka filling in at left back and Saka playing a lot further forward, we lacked midfield. We lacked a presence in midfield. So Ainsley tucked in to maintain the pivot with his central midfielder partner, and he put in a lot of top displays. I remember the game against. I thought he did well against Bournemouth in Arteta's first game. The most noticeable one for me was against Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park, where we were up against, you know, Wilfried Zaha, who's been a thorn in our side over the years, whether that's through goals, assists, or winning penalties for his side. And Ainsley was up against him, and he nullified his threats completely. If you remember that game, Wilfried Zaha had no impact whatsoever, and it was with Ainsley. You know, that was just a top performance he put in. If you remember against Man United, he's against Marcus Rashford. Yes, he may be an inconsistent player, but he's still one of the top wide attackers in the Premier League. Nullified his threats. And I think the point where, you know, when Bellerin came back from his injury, there was a game against Sheffield United, if you remember it, with the 1-1 at home, and John Fleck's goal came from our right-hand side. Yeah. A lot of people argue that Ainsley was at fault for that goal, and that was actually the last game we saw of Ainsley in the Premier League before lockdown. And I look at that goal, and if you analyse it again, there's 3 or 4 players in that right-hand side, and Ainsley's got no cover. Yes, he could perhaps get closer to John Fleck and look to stop the shot, but you know, there was a lot of passages and elements to the goal before it actually happened that should be looked at, in my opinion. And I think after that, Bellerin came in. Overall, you know, before lockdown happened, he did show, you know, he lacked consistency, in my opinion. You know, he had a good game against Chelsea, but overall, I felt that from the period where he came in all the way till the game against West Ham, I felt that he did lack consistency, and I felt Ainsley deserved a chance. But now, obviously, when we go after lockdown, to me, Ainsley's a player that Arteta clearly has full trust in. I don't know what's happened, you know, in the space between where we were in quarantine. He seems a player that Arteta has full trust in, no matter where he plays. If you remember the game against Wolves, Tierney comes off because, you know, he's still recovering from that injury he had at West Ham. He against Darling at left wing back in a position that he's not played on many occasions. Completely settled in brilliantly and nullified his threats. And I think the most noticeable ones are the games against Chelsea and Manchester City in the FA Cup semi-final and final. You know, it was a surprise inclusion bringing Ainsley in at left back, and it was a big job and a big role that he had to fulfill for the team. And Arteta clearly had trust that he could play the way he wanted to, and he did brilliantly. You know, he He stopped Morris from having any sort of impact in the game. He had one opportunity where he did allow him to cut inside, and Martinez made a good save. But again, his selection was justified. And again, in the final, not only was his defensive performance solid, but offensively, he created an outlet. He combined well with Aubameyang, gave him a partnership, and he caused them all sorts of problems. And, the one thing about Ainsley is that what I say is that he really frustrates me is because of the fact that he had an opportunity to claim a place in the starting 11 and make that your own. If you remember that, we had that right back position open with Bellerin, consistently with his ongoing injury issues. We had Callum Chambers playing there. Ainsley had an opportunity to cement his place as Arsenal's first team right back. And had he have realised it then that, not many people have the opportunity to play for a football club like Arsenal. Make that position your own, play wherever you're told. He wanted to play in central midfield, but you had an opportunity to cement yourself in the Arsenal 11, and he didn't do that. And now he is doing it, but I hope it's not too late because, right now I see a player that can play multiple positions. He can play right wing back, he can play right back, left wing back, left back, central midfield. He can play even on the wing. A utility player, versatility, similar to Saka. James Milner does it for Liverpool. These players are valuable in your team. And like you said, I would sell players ahead of Ainsley. I wouldn't sell him. I would sell Guendouzi and Torreira to fund the Partey deal, in my opinion, if I would do that. And obviously bring Ceballos on for another year at least. So they're definitely players who, if we are, we are a self-sustaining model. So what we sell, we're going to spend. And there are players now that we have who are assets that we can sell on and raise funds who can, pay that release clause for Thomas Partey. And going to Thomas Partey, I think, like you two said, this guy would transform our midfield. He has so many good attributes: physicality, aggression, athleticism. And for me, a lot of people see him as a defensive midfielder. I don't. I see him as more of a number 8 playing next to Granit Xhaka and holding box to box. Yeah, because his attributes in possession are very underrated. He can drive with the ball. He's got a good passing range. But the good thing about Thomas Partey is, although I wouldn't want to play him, let's say, against low teams, we could play Thomas Partey in a defensive role. We could have 2 8s providing creativity. But yeah, I would play Thomas Partey as a number 8 next to Granit Xhaka. I think Xhaka is fundamental in terms of the way we want to play. He's the holding midfielder, similar to the way Rodri does at Manchester City. It's a position where it's not focused primarily on the defensive side of the game. It's more in terms of control and dominating possession. Xhaka, there's a lot of misconception that, he's a very negative player, but Xhaka is, although Ceballos maybe has tipped him since lockdown has been lifted, he's our most progressive midfielder. He provides progression through deep. He breaks the lines frequently, and he gives space for players in front of him more time. And I think that with Granit Xhaka playing as a holding midfielder and Thomas Partey next to him, I think that's a very good midfield. Hopefully we can.
Yeah, cheers. I want to touch on 2 players very, very quickly. The Leon attacking midfield player, I hope I get to pronounce this right, Hassim Aouar has been linked with Arsenal. And the Coutinho links. But quickly with Coutinho, for me, I was never convinced in terms of this move potentially happening, if I'm being brutally honest. I think Tottenham were linked with him last season, getting him on loan. But yeah, I would be happy if we got him, but I can't see that particularly happening. So, but Hassim Aouar, I don't know too much about, but seeing the performances he's put in recently for Lyon in the Champions League, looks a very, very promising player. Still young. People still say he's a bit raw and he doesn't impose himself too much on games. But from what I've briefly seen, he would be ideal for our to fit in. So, guys, what's your thoughts on that? Starting with Rohan, mate. Sorry.
With Philippe Coutinho, I think this is a player that we need at the club. In terms of short term, I think Philippe Coutinho provides that. If we look at his time at Bayern Munich, yes, he's not lived up to the expectations. If we look at him just purely on productivity, I think he's got 15 goals and assists this season. And that's in a season where apparently he's not hitting his heights. And I think with Coutinho, I think he's a player that we need, particularly who help us break teams down who deploy low block. He may not be as creative as Mesut Ozil statistically, in terms of chances created. But what he does is, if we had Philippe Coutinho playing in between the lines, we'd have a player that teams would fear, because they know if they allow him time to cut inside, there's the very good possibility that he scores. And he showed that in his Liverpool career. He showed that in his Bayern Munich as well. And I think that what that does is that he will occupy players, and that will give space to others in around him. And he has the ability also to provide the right decision making in between the lines. And I think, I think that this deal might happen. I see it this one happening more likely than the Aouar deal. With Aouar, like you said, I've not seen much of him, but from the little I have seen of him, he reminds me a lot of Dani Ceballos. He's able to carry the ball from deep. he's very press resistant and he can get out those tight spaces. I need to see more of him, how influential he is in between the lines. The games against, in the Champions League, there've been games where they've had to surrender more possession, so it's a little bit difficult for him to really impose his game. And that's what I want to see more from him. Certainly a bright prospect, but in terms of the money that they're looking for, I've heard rumors of 60 million. At the moment, I don't think that's really a smart investment. He could potentially be that kind of player, but right now, I think that, me personally, I would bring in Coutinho. I think he's a player, even if it's a loan for a year, if we were able to do an agreement with Barcelona, share his wages, I think he's on 240 grand a week. So if we share it and it's 120k a week on top of a signing on fee, I think it could be 10, 12 million a year. I think that's what, because he's a short-term investment. He certainly has Premier League experience. He can slot into the team, and you know what you're going to get from Coutinho. He's going to provide goals. He's going to create space for others because he's a player that teams are going to fit. And that might get the best out of the likes of Pepe and even Aubameyang. He'll get a lot more space in games as well.
Spot on. Yeah, totally agree. Richard, what's your thoughts, mate?
I mean, I actually think Coutinho would probably be a decent player for us. He's got Premier League experience, but Charlie Watts, who I listen to quite a lot, he's quite in the know, as it were, isn't he? He knows what's going on. He doesn't think that deal is going to happen. Yeah. In fact, he'd be surprised if it does. He thinks that the club have gone cool on that one. So as much as I think Coutinho would be a decent signing for us, I'm just not sure now it's going to happen, unfortunately, because I do kind of trust what Charlie Watts has actually said. So I've got a feeling that one might not be happening now, which would be a shame, actually, because if we could have got him, I do think that would have been a good signing. In terms of the other guy from Lyon, he looks a good player, doesn't he? Let's face it, in the Champions League, he's looked good. Yes, he's maybe got similar characteristics to Dani Ceballos. I guess he has. He's maybe going to give us a little bit more in the final third in terms of goals and assists. With Ceballos hasn't really given us enough of that, has he yet? But again, I don't know obviously, no doubt his price would have gone up. I think someone mentioned in the comments, didn't they, after how he's been played in the Champions League? No doubt his price would have gone up now. And I don't know whether that's going to be realistically within our budgets. I don't know. But then if we're selling Torreira, if we're selling Guendouzi, raising some funds that way, then who knows? To be honest with you, we do need more creativity in midfield. We do need more of a forward thrust from midfield, don't we? And if he's a player that can provide that, which it certainly looks as though he could, then, again, if it's possible to get the deal done, he's certainly a player that we should look at without a shadow of a doubt, because he's probably going to improve what we've got. The same with Coutinho, he would, wouldn't he? Let's face it, he would improve our midfield in terms of output, goals and assists from midfield, which we've lacked for a while. And imagine having him in there with Thomas Partey as well, in Willian.
It'd be exciting.
How many more goals are we going to score next season to how many goals we scored this year and maybe the season before? And that's going to be the difference, isn't it? Because, we might well still let in a few next season because we're going to have a young defence, a new look defence, which might take a while to gel. But we're certainly potentially with that midfield, we'd score a lot more goals, wouldn't we? So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed and hope that some of these deals can happen, because what an exciting transfer window this would be if that was the case, and what a great exciting season we could have to look forward to. If nothing else, we can't go to games, which is a bit of a downer, but at least we could actually have a team that can compete again at the top level. And I think with some of those signings, with two or three of them new players there that we've mentioned, if we were to get 2 or 3 of them in, then to be honest with you, there's no limit to how far this team could develop over the next 2 or 3 years.
Cheers, guys. I'm going to get your thoughts on this. This is going to be a keep or sell. I've got some players enlisted. You just got to say you keep or sell them. Torreira, Rohan,
Sell.
Rich.
Yeah, sell. Yeah,
I'd sell as well. Squadron Mustafi, Rich.
I think it depends. If we buy another defender such as Gabriel, then I'd say sell. If we don't buy another defender at all, then I would keep him as a decent squad player to have. It depends really on who we buy. Personally,
I would sell him. Rohan?
I would keep him. I think, we can't get rid of, there's a lot of centre backs there. In my opinion, if I was there, I would get rid of most of them. I would only keep Mari, because he's not really had an opportunity. Those are the 2 I'd only really keep. But I think the other centre backs I'd move on before Mustafi, so I would keep him.
Rich, Rob Holding.
Sell.
Rohan?
100% sell.
Yep, sell. Hector Bellerin. Rich?
I'll keep him because he's a handsome boy, and so we keep him.
I don't know if that's a good reason, but
well, keep him. No, keep him, mate. Keep him. Yeah.
Rohan.
I'd keep him. I think these last few performances have encouraged me. So I think maybe perhaps he's starting to recover from his ACL. And I was talking to someone who knows a lot about the ins and outs of an ACL, and it does take a lot of time for the actual bones to recover. And maybe we saw the pace that he had in the final game against Chelsea in the final. That run that was the catalyst for our goal. So I would give him one more year. Although he is lucky because at other top clubs he would have been gone by now.
Yeah. Me personally, if I was being ultra ruthless, and this is nothing personal against the two players I'm going to mention, I would sell Maitland-Niles and Bellerin and get in Max Aarons. But that's just my personal opinion. Yes. Next subject. Expectations for the season and where will Arsenal finish? I'm going to start with Richard.
A lot of the expectations are probably going to come from the final transfers that we end up getting over the line. At this moment in time, with the current squad that we've got, if we don't sign anybody else, let's just assume this is the squad we've got. My expectations are massive improvements on the last couple of years, certainly in the big games away from home. I think we've got the right manager in place. I think he understands what's needed to win at the top level, the work that he's done at Man City. I think I was saying this the other day, right, that if we'd got in December when Arteta came in, if we'd got Pep instead and Arteta had, say, taken over at Man City and we'd got Pep, I don't think we'd have seen the improvements that we've seen under Arteta. The guy's a genius, honestly. With player to player improvements individually, he's been brilliant. And he's got everybody on board. And I say, even with no other signings, with the team that we've got, my expectations would be certainly a real big challenge for getting in the top four. With 2 or 3 of these other signings that we've mentioned, I actually feel we could make a title challenge, because I don't think Liverpool are going to be as strong next year. I don't think Man City are, and all the other teams that finished above us are no better than us anyway. And if we can get these improvements in, with Arteta leading the way, I really feel as though if the transfer window goes well, I don't see any reason why we can't challenge for the title. I'm not saying we can win the title, but challenge in terms of, being in and around there, not being 10, 15 points away from them, being close in and giving it a go and finishing in the top 3. But again, I think that does depend on the transfers that we get in. If we don't sign anyone else, I'd say top 4 is probably the maximum we can hope for with the current squad that we've got. If we get 2 or 3 of these other ones in as well, I think we can actually challenge for the top 2, the top 3, definitely.
Richard, I know you're Mr. Positive, Richard, man. I'll come with my thoughts afterwards. But Rohan, go ahead, mate. What do you think? Expectations of where Arsenal finish?
Yeah, I think if we don't make any signings from now, hypothetically, I don't think we will be anywhere near the top 4, in my opinion. I think the way I see it is that if I said that before the start of the season, we need to make at least 3 signings: a centre-back, a central midfielder who provides power, steel, tenacity, that's Thomas Partey, and a creative midfielder who's going to help us break these teams down, who deploy low block. And these are the games that are going to justify and determine whether we finish the top 4. And so those 3 players, if we bring, let's say, Gabriel, Thomas Partey, and Philippe Coutinho, I think we've got a good chance of finishing top 4. But although it's a good chance, I still think it might not be enough because of the fact that, you look at Man United, I think that they're a couple of signings away from being a serious team. I think Chelsea as well, they've gone about their business well, certainly because of the fact that, they had the transfer ban, they used it. They still have the Hazard and Morata money. I think, they spent that on bringing in Ziyech and Werner. But, if they address their backline, again, they're going to be a serious team. So, even though I have a lot of faith in Arteta, it still might be a little bit too much to get into that top 4 because of the money that other teams are going to spend as well. I think also that, us winning the FA Cup, I think, was vital because not only in terms of financially, I think the Europa League brings 30 million in terms of that we can spend, but also it gives us another avenue for Champions League football. So I just want to see us progress. I think Champions League football for me is vital for Arteta as it gives him a platform that he can build with. And I think with the Europa League, we certainly can win that. But in terms of expectations, I just want to see us progress. That's something I've not seen over recent years. And even if we don't finish in the top 4, if I've seen progression, I've seen signs that we are capable of doing something, then that's good enough for me as well. I think it's a process. We've got to be patient, and I think as fans, I think we've got to get behind Arteta because we've got a manager who certainly knows what he's doing. He's been under 2 revolutionary managers, under Pep Guardiola in terms of the style of football that he's implemented in Barcelona. You look at Arsene Wenger as well; he's learnt under 2 top managers, and you add those ideas he's learned from then, on top of his own innovative ideas, you've got a very exciting manager who can do something. So I think I've got a lot of faith in Arteta, but it depends on the transfers. And if we bring those 3 players, like I said, I think we've got a good chance of finishing the top 4, although it might still be tough, particularly going along the league route.
I just want to say 75 points for me should be our minimum aim for the season. 75 points in the Premier League with the players that we've got, and hopefully 1 or 2 that we sign. That should be the minimum number of points that we get. And if we get 75 points as a minimum, this season that would have been enough to finish 3rd, wouldn't it? So, and in general, that's enough to get in the top 4. But as a minimum, that is, looking upwards from there. If we could actually get upwards towards 80 points, we'll have a great chance, won't we, of being really in the mix. And I don't see any reason why we can't do that. With, when you look, since Arteta's come into the end of the season in terms of points that we've won, we would have been in the top 4, wouldn't we? And that's just with him having hardly any time at all with the team, giving him that extra 6 months that he's had with new players coming in as well. I think 75 points, or as a minimum number that we should be aiming for. That's what I think. Yeah,
I think for me, I was asked this question a while ago where Arsenal would sort of my expectations and where they'd finish. I said 5th at the time, but that was obviously the fact that we hadn't signed anybody at the time, and we're seeing who we're going to get in the summer transfer window. But I still think now, I think there's still, if you ask me around Christmas time, I probably might change my mind depending on what we're doing in the league. But I think what I want to see this season personally is just we haven't competed for a long time in regards to 2 factors, for the top 4 and for the league. And I look at Liverpool as a reference. So when I say Liverpool as a reference, I mean in the sense that Liverpool have amazing history and we've had some fantastic players and unbelievable managers. And they've only just got over the line in terms of winning the Premier League. Now, we've gone 16 years without winning the Premier League, or since 2004. The thing that would worry me, if Arteta wasn't in charge, the thing that would worry me and has worried me for quite a long time is we could go another 14 years before we see a league title at Arsenal. It's not inconceivable. It could happen. Liverpool have the prestige and history they do. They've had some unbelievable players in the last 15, 20 years, but still couldn't get over the line. But I think the reason why a lot of Arsenal fans are very, very enthused, more so down to the fact that we've got Mikel Arteta. We've got a young, dynamic manager who's got versatility, and that's the way forward with these modern day coaches, as Rohan alluded to earlier. So, I just want to see us compete again and go to the top six away clubs and perform better. Yes, you can't help whether if you go and lose, you lose. It happens. It's football. But, the stats that we have for, the games we played against the top 6, for example, it's shocking. But then on the flip side as well, I want to see us command and dominate teams and get on the front foot against the teams that might be mid-table or relegation bout. Because as alluded to by both you guys, and probably under the time we had Emery, I didn't have a clue what we was doing in terms of style. The substitutions were confusing. The lineups were very confusing. The players looked confused. But under Arteta, to me, like I said it before, when he had his first interview, in terms of he had me hooked. He had me basically. Yeah. He was saying the right things, but it was something. It was refreshing, and the slight kind of digs at the ball after games being interviewed and making the point that we need to have improvements to make this squad and team better. And we have you got to have. They say it's the hope that kills you, but you got to believe in something. It has to get better than what the last 2 years. But we have like I said, we have a dynamic coach that we've got a chance. You know what I mean? There's potential for light at the end of the tunnel. But hopefully I'm wrong and I'll get proved wrong that we don't finish 5th and we finish above. What I would say is, in terms of last season with the top 4, although we finished 8th, you saw even with Leicester and Chelsea and Man United, they struggled to get over the line. It's almost like nobody wanted it. So if that carries on to going into this season coming, guys, you never know, man.
It was a it was low points total, wasn't it? The third and fourth. That was a low number of points to finish that high compared to in recent years, in particular. And if that's going to be the reason why, because apart from Liverpool and Man City to a certain degree, everybody was taking points off everybody else, wasn't they? Even the teams at the bottom of the league struggling against relegation would regularly take points off the teams challenging for the top four, wouldn't they? And if that's going to continue over the next season, then you've got to look at it. If you get 70 points, you're guaranteed getting in the top four. Whereas a couple of years ago, we got 75 points and come fifth.
Yeah.
And it shows that how the league maybe over the last couple of years has got more. Maybe the gap between the bottom teams and the top teams is closing, isn't it? I think that's the reason why Liverpool won the league so easily this year, because they've been able to not get dragged down a little bit as everybody else has, and the rest of the league's really closed up, hasn't it? And it went to show, didn't it? At one point in the season, we were as close to the relegation zone as we was to getting in the top four. And in the end, we finished sort of in the middle of both of them. But we could easily have finished even at one point. It could have gone either way, couldn't it? And I just feel as though next season, if it's going to be similar to that again, then if you only need 68 points or whatever, 67 points, whatever it was, to get in the top four, with the team that we've got and with the manager we've got, we should be able to get that many points. We should be able to. But as Rohan said, everyone else is strengthening. So possibly those teams are going to get more points next season. But having said that, if everybody strengthens, you've got Leeds coming up. They're going to be no pushover. Sheffield United are going to be no pushovers again. Southampton, what a good finish to the season they had. If they continue that into the new season, they're going to take points off everyone. So, it's not going to be easy. Don't get me wrong. It's not going to be easy. But if the target's only going to be 65 points, 68 points, around that to get in the top four, that should be doable, I think, for us. It should.
You make a point, Rich.
Go on, mate.
You make a good point, Rich. And I if you look at the last 2 years, there've been really low points tallies that have got to the top four. And the reason for that, I think a large reason for it is because, the inflation and money coming into the Premier League, teams are a lot more financially able to bring top players in. And you've seen teams like Sheffield United, they've beaten Chelsea 3-0. You look at Chelsea this season, they finished, I think, was it fourth or third? They lost 11 games this season. And that's because
56 goals as well. Conceded 56 goals to finish in the top four. That never happened. Never. That's never happened before, I don't think.
And that's why, with our running, if we're in the mix and we, let's say, 3 or 4 points off top four come April time, we have a run of fixtures where we have to play Liverpool and Chelsea. But apart from that, we've got a lot of fixtures there that we can achieve good results that will allow us to finish the season strong. And that might be enough for the top four. I think that 75 points, I think it'll be a lot less needed than 75 points because of the fact that a lot of teams, I think that's a good target. If you get 75 points this season, I think that's enough for the top four.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think also as well, I think defensively, you made a good point about the goals conceded with Chelsea, because the top 10 last season, the top 3 clubs with conceded most goals were Chelsea, Arsenal, and Burnley. Arsenal conceded, I think, 98 or 99 goals in 2 seasons. You can't get top 4 conceding that many goals. So that has to change. So we shouldn't expect too much of Gabriel if he definitely comes in, which I hope he does, and Saliba. They've got big shoes to fill, even with the experience of David Luiz there. But guys, I've got one more thing to say before the podcast is done. Bit of a dilemma question that you guys knew was coming. 2 Arsenal legends. You could only choose one. Okay. Both Scandinavian players, both different eras of Arsenal. One was early 90s to 1994, bit before Rohan's time anyway. One was 1998 to 2007, a combined total caps for Sweden of 133 caps. Both title winners, both FA Cup winners. You've got a choice out of 2 players, Freddie Ljungberg or Anders Limpar. I'm going to start with Rohan first.
I've not seen much of Anders Limpar. I've watched him back, and he certainly was a vital player in the team. But for me, I've got Freddie Ljungberg. Goal scoring wide player, and a lot of goals he scored. Had a lot of meaning. So if you look in the FA Cup, I think Freddie Ljungberg is the only player to have scored in 2 consecutive finals. A player who got big goals for us. And again, although in terms of his stint as in coaching after Unai Emery, I wasn't very happy with that. But as a player, I have to go Freddie Ljungberg.
Yeah, cool. I thought you might say that, Rohan, to me, but I thought I'd ask you the question anyway. Richard, I know you see both in great detail, more than I have. But who's your choice, mate?
I mean, they're both kind of different players. Anders Limpar was a very individual player. You know, he was a great dribbler with the ball. He had a great pace. And he created a lot of chances. I mean, there was one game, I don't know if you can remember, when he set up 4 goals for Ian Wright in one game against Everton.
Yeah.
And he had that about him, but he was a very individual player. He wasn't really a team player. He wasn't going to work back and tackle. He wasn't going to do any defensive work at all. But with the ball at his feet, he was electric. And in that particular team, particularly in the 91 title-winning team, he was brilliant.
Oh.
Freddie Ljungberg, he was a less individual player. He was much more of a team player, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He worked well in the system, and I think Freddie Ljungberg was fortunate actually playing for Arsenal when he did, with the great players around him that brought the best out of him. I mean, how many times did Bergkamp put them little balls through for Ljungberg's runs to score goals? And you know, I feel that in a maybe a slightly less good Arsenal team, I think Ljungberg would maybe have struggled to have had the impact that he did. But having said that, obviously great players step up, and that's what he did. And he scored a lot of important goals. I mean, that 2002 season, at the end of that season, he's scoring goals every game, wasn't he? And that goal he got in the FA Cup final against Chelsea was just unbelievable, really. And I mean, if you look at the career as a whole, obviously Ljungberg was at Arsenal 9 years. He won the double. He was part of the Invincibles. He won another 2 FA Cups as well. But he was there for a long time in a great team. Limpar had a lot shorter Arsenal career. And unfortunately, what happened was George Graham changed the style of play. Actually, he bought Limpar first of all. We used the wide players really well at that point. Limpar had a great couple of years, and then we got Ian Wright in, and George Graham kind of bypassed midfield a little bit, got the ball forward quicker to Wrighty, and it changed the style of play. And Limpar was sort of surplus to requirements, really. I mean, you'd kind of like both of them in the same team. And you would. But I mean, obviously, for the career that he had, I mean, you'd have to go for Ljungberg. But I mean, Limpar was a far better individual player. I think, like in terms of talent, he's probably a more talented player. Limpar was than Ljungberg. I think Ljungberg was actually quite limited in terms of ability, but what he had was great work rate, fantastic. I mean, he got up and down the pitch everywhere, and he made clever little runs into the box, didn't he? Late runs into the box, the sort of runs that our midfield don't do anymore. And had him clever little runs that he did. And we had the players like Bergkamp and Henry and Pires who could get the ball to him, and he was a good finisher. So obviously Ljungberg, just for the career that he had at Arsenal, fantastic. But I mean, Limpar was the sort of player that got you off your seat when he got the ball.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was like, wow, and he did some amazing things. He's just, unfortunately, he didn't have a long enough career at Arsenal, and the system changed that didn't suit him really. But I'd like both of them at their peak to be in the team at the same time, because we wouldn't have lost the game, would we? Limpar doing his stuff up there, Ljungberg working in behind him would have been brilliant. But you know, unfortunately, they didn't quite overlap, did they? But I would go for Ljungberg just for the longevity of his career at Arsenal and what he achieved, really. And just, he's an all-round good guy. And again, he looked great in boxer shorts, didn't he? So
well, the Calvin guys, that was an unbelievable shot. Well, I'm gonna go against the grain. People who know me, I absolutely loved Anders Limpar. I'm not disputing Freddie was at Arsenal had a longer career, and you know, Invincibles, and Freddie's ability to finish chances, which we don't have that attacking midfield player at Arsenal for years. We missed the days of Ljungberg and Robert Pires giving us that goal output. Brilliant with that. Limpar, loved him. He's like a man crush to be growing up. But he had that X factor, and he was, to me, was a definition of a.
Remember that goal against Liverpool he scored from the centre? So that was
he was a crowd pleaser. Like, he was a definition of a crowd pleaser, like a Nwankwo Kanu as well. They just Limpar, and the thing is, he won the FA Cup at Everton long time ago, Rohan, mate, 95, right? And for Everton fans, remember this. Like, they won the FA Cup in 95. They beat Man United in the final. Anders Limpar played a pass in that match. If it's available to get out there, guys, check it out. Find it on YouTube or whatever. But he played a pass in that match. Barry Davis at the time, who was commentating, said it's the best pass he's ever seen. If a Zidane done it, or a Messi, or a Cristiano Ronaldo done it, they'd be waxing lyrical. And to me, that defined Anders Limpar as a player. He just had that X factor.
Very underrated, wasn't he, Limpar? Very underrated.
And injuries as well.
2 or 3 years at Arsenal, he was phenomenal, and he never even got a regular game in the team because George Graham kept leaving him out because he wouldn't defend, he wouldn't work back, would he? That was a problem. But what a talented guy he was, unbelievable. Absolutely. I'm going to try and get him on my podcast actually because I love him. But
yeah, try, mate. I'll be tuning in, mate. Trust me. But
I'll get you on with him if I can get him on.
yeah, definitely. I'll be there, mate. I'll be there. I'll be waxing lyrical, man. But no, guys, come to the end of the podcast. I appreciate your time, Rohan. I know you're a busy guy. Rich, I know you're a busy guy, but it's important for me to kick off my first podcast with you guys on because I respect your opinion. You've been very supportive towards me in terms of my channel and retweets and shares and positive words, and that's only going to help me grow my channel. So, guys, hit the like buttons. Subscribe to my channel. Check out the guys' his channel down in the description below. Rohan, tell the guys where they can find you.
Yeah, on the handle RJ Arsenal blog on Twitter and Instagram. Yeah, I share everything on Twitter. I'm more active on Twitter than I am on Instagram. But yeah, if you enjoy Arsenal content and you want to hear my thoughts and opinions and articles I write, then yeah, follow me.
Guys, trust me, check him out, man. I can vouch for that. Richard, tell them where the guys can find you.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, Gooner Rich B. Also, so I've got my new YouTube channel over and over and over again, which I'm trying to be positive on. Like I'm trying to be positive tonight if I can. I'm just sick and tired of everything being down and everybody getting down with the club. At the end of the day, I think we've got good times coming, and I'm hopefully that my new YouTube channel can cover it as well. I mean, Albert's channel is brilliant. I love what he does, and I say Rowan's blog's excellent as well. I've been following them for quite a while now, so definitely recommend both to everyone. Get for following, get sharing, and everything like that because. There's a lot of Arsenal content out there at the minute. Arsenal seem to be the one club that seems to have the most social media output, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Twitter, wherever it is. That shows what a big club we are. But there's so much stuff out there, and it's really nice when new stuff gets out there. Obviously what Albert's doing is brilliant, and I say what Rowan's doing as well. It's new stuff. It's slightly different, a different take on things as well, which is what I'm trying to do as well. Something a little bit different because there's a lot of it out there. It's difficult sometimes, isn't it, to find different approaches to things because there's so much of it. Arsenal's the most talked about club ever, really. Liverpool might have won the league, Man United might have won them trophies, but we're definitely the most talked about club. And it's great to be a part of it, part of it on YouTube and on social media and stuff like that because it's an exciting time to be an Arsenal fan, actually, even though it hasn't been great on the pitch. All the stuff that's been going on, the dramas and stuff like that, isn't it? There's always something to talk about. Not a day goes by when something happens, and and it's good to be able to share that with people like yourselves, kind of involved as well. You know what I mean? It's all good stuff.
No, I appreciate it, guys. So yeah, guys, follow me, Albert JTV. My Twitter handle is there. Check the link in the bio. Check out my content, guys. I've got to have you guys on again, man. Most definitely, sometime we'll arrange that. So next week, Charity Shields, and then not too long the season will start after that. But guys, for me, it's over and out. # Albert Talks Podcast. Cheers, guys. Up the Arsenal.
Come on, you guys.